Good morning. Welcome to the board meeting of the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. This meeting is being held on Friday, August 26th at Hilton Los Angeles Airport, 5711 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. I would like to call this meeting to order. And as part of calling this meeting to order today, we're going to include the Pledge of Allegiance. Could I please ask everyone to voluntarily stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, as led by my fellow board member and veteran, Donna Norton. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Agenda item number 14, introduction of board members and board staff. I am Samantha James Perez, board president and PT member. Will the board members please introduce themselves, starting at my far left?
Donna Norton, LVN member.
John Vertito, nursing educator, LVN.
Good morning. Bernice Baste Martinez, public member.
Good morning, Tammy Indozo, LVN member.
Good morning, Andrew Moreno, public member and board vice president.
Good morning, I'm Todd DeBronstein. I'm a psychiatric technician member.
Good morning, Vivian Avella, public member.
Good morning, John Deerking, public member.
Thank you, board members. Let the record reflect that we have quorum at this time. Would the executive officer please introduce herself and your staff that are present?
Thank you, Madam President. My name is Kamika Brown, and I have with me Jessica Gomez, nurse executive consultant, Donna Johnson, nurse executive consultant, Lydia Ziegler, nurse executive consultant, Cheryl Anderson, supervising nurse executive consultant, Gina Bayless, chief of enforcement, Jessica Almanza, administrative assistant, and Jay Prouty, enforcement.
Great. We also have legal counsel present. Counsel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks. Rebecca Bond, legal counsel.
That takes us to agenda item number 15, introduction of approved schools represented at this meeting based upon the voluntary sign-in. I would now like to introduce the vocational nurse and psychiatric technician schools that are present at today's meeting and voluntarily signed in. I would just ask that you please stand and be recognized when I state your school's name. We'll start with PT programs, American College of Nursing PT. Welcome, good morning. Hacienda La Puente, adult education. Good morning. Then we have the VN programs, American Career College Los Angeles. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
American Career College St. Francis.
And St. Francis, thank you. American College of Nursing. American Medical Science Center. Good morning. Angeles College. Welcome. Annenberg School of Nursing. Good morning. Baldy View ROP. Thank you for being here. Bay Area College of Nursing Daly City. Good morning. Brightwood College, North County. And Brightwood College, North Hollywood. Good morning, ladies. Brightwood College, San Diego. Welcome. Casa Loma College, Van Nuys. Good morning. CES College. Welcome. Chaffey College, Chino Campus. Good morning. Charter College, Soledad. Good morning. College of the Desert. Good morning. Concord Career College, North Hollywood. Welcome. Curram College. Good morning, thank you for being here. Downey Adult School. Welcome. Grossmont Health Occupation Center. Welcome. Then Hacienda La Puente Adult Education Willow Center. Yeah. Welcome again. High Desert Medical College. Good morning. Infotech Career College. Good morning. Intercoast College Fairfield. Good morning. LAUSD Maxine Walters Employment Prep Center. Welcome. Marian College, Los Angeles. Good morning, thank you for being here. Medical Allied Career Center. Good morning, and good morning to your students. National Career College, Panorama City. Welcome. North Orange County ROP. Welcome. Pacific College. Good morning. Palo Verde Community College. Welcome. Platt College, Alhambra. Good morning. Preferred College of Nursing, Van Nuys. Welcome. And Premier Career College.
Good morning, and
Good morning, sir. Santa Barbara Business College. Welcome. Santa Barbara Business College, Rancho Mirage. Same thing? Okay. I didn't see you had 2 campuses. Southern California Medical College. Good morning. I'm going to say it wrong. Sri Sri Krish Institute.
Good morning.
Good morning. Would you like to say the correct pronunciation of your?
Sri Sai Krish Institute.
Thank you. Summit Career College, Anaheim. Good morning. And Summit College, Colton. Okay. West Coast Ultrasound Institute, Beverly Hills and Ontario. Good morning. YWCA, Los Angeles Job Corps. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. Actually, is there any school that did not sign in that wishes to be recognized? Yes, please, ma'am, in the pink. Welcome to you. Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Saracosa Community College.
Thank you.
Homestead Schools Incorporated.
Welcome to you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Santa Maria, for being here. Good morning, San Diego. Okay, thank you all for being here today. We appreciate your presence. The Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians is required to hold public meetings and make policy decisions that protect the health safety, and welfare of California consumers. Public meeting agendas are prepared well in advance of the board meeting. Agenda requests for consideration must be clearly set forth in writing. The board requests that all items and supporting documents be included on the agenda to be received in Sacramento headquarters by the first day of the month preceding the month of the scheduled board meeting. In addition, if there are documents that you would like board members to review in a timely manner, please consider relative to an agenda item. The board asks that you submit 15 copies of the documents and provide to the board an electronic version of the documents, preferably on compact disc. Please ensure that you redact any student names prior to copying the information. During the meeting today, public comment is welcome on any agenda item when the item is taken up by the board. Under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, the board may not take any action on issues raised by the public that are not on the agenda, other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for a future meeting. If any person wishes to address the board, please come forward to the podium when I call for public comment on that specific issue. It is helpful for the record if you would like to state your name and the name of the organization you represent. However, you may remain anonymous if you wish to do so. And as always, just a reminder, please conduct yourselves in a professional manner when making comments. I must insist that those who wish to comment direct their comments to the board members only, not to staff, and refrain from any personal attacks, profanity, threatening behavior. We're all professionals here. We have a very full agenda today, and in order to allow the board sufficient time to conduct its business, I may, if we have a lot of public comment, limit the time given to each person who wishes to comment, generally about 3 minutes. Please understand, this is because I want to hear from everyone and give all those who wish to comment a chance to do so. I would rather hear from everyone for 3 minutes than one person for 30 minutes, okay? Please make sure your comments are focused and relevant to the applicable agenda item and directed to the board members. If you wish, it is acceptable for you to simply state that you agree with a previous speaker, or you can make an original statement. It's up to you. If I should forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item, it is not because I intend to limit the comment, so please raise your hand or come to the podium and I will recognize you. The board appreciates your cooperation and assistance meeting its legal mandate. Just a couple general comments I would like to make. The first one is to thank board members for their late evening yesterday in closed session. I appreciate your dedication to the board and your service to the protection of the public. I also wanted to give just a brief report that Dr. Brown, Vice President Moreno, and I were in Chicago for 4 days last week at the National Council of State Boards of Nursing annual meeting. I want you to know that there was no charge incurred to the state. All costs were absorbed and sponsored by National Council. At the conference, there were representatives from boards of nursing from all 50 states, at least 4 Canadian provinces, U.S. territories such as American Samoa and Guam, even other countries such as the Bahamas were represented. It was extremely productive. We made important contacts, learned a great deal, participated in important forums, and proactively added our voice to the national conversation. I strongly believe it's crucial for California to have a place at the table at these types of meetings and be proactive about the national nursing regulations, especially since California licensed more LVNs, over 130,000, than any other state or territory. In fact, we license more LVNs than several states combined. Dr. Brown was also approached to become directly involved in some national projects and committees. There's also opportunity for continued engagement by staff and myself or Vice President Moreno. Now, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about the agenda. There are formal break periods listed on the agenda. However, you guys see the agenda today. You see we have a large amount of items. So the only formal corporate break that we will be taking is lunch. Otherwise, if board members, staff, or audience members need to take a personal break, feel free to do so on your own. We will not be stopping the proceedings. I only ask that you're as quiet as possible when leaving the room, as not to disrupt business being conducted by the board. Now, also about agenda, I just have a couple comments on agenda items. I want us all to stay on the same page. So to keep all education items together, we'll move up agenda item 22C. So not all of 22, just 22C, the education report, and take it between 16 and 17. So here's how it will go. Right after my comments, we'll take 16, which is a presentation from Southern California Directors of Vocational Nursing Programs. Then we will have 22C, the education report, which is currently listed as part of the EO report. After that, we'll move on to 17, Education Committee Report by Dr. Baste Martinez and Mr. Vertito. Then we will address all the schools listed under 17 and 18. So 17A, B, C, and 18A, B, C, and D. Now, after we hear from all schools, we'll need to return to number 17, Education Committee, to discuss and vote on certain authorities of the committee. That will be done after we hear from all the schools. Okay, you guys with me so far? Regarding item 20, fee audit report, I just want to mention that a couple clarifications will need to be announced when we reach that agenda item. I will announce the clarifying information, and Mr. Eds will also be here to address the information. So anyone who's reviewing that fee audit report today, maybe at a break or lunch, know that there's going to be a couple clarifications. The only other departure from the agenda today will be a special presentation I have arranged that will either be right after lunch or after we finish all education items, okay? Let's get started. That takes us to agenda item 16, consideration of publication of student names with quarterly pass rate results. That's Southern California Directors of Vocational Nursing Programs. Is there a representative from this organization here? Ms. Estrada. Good morning, and we did receive...
Good morning. Elizabeth Estrada, and I'm honored to stand before you as president of the Southern California Vocational Nursing Program.
Welcome to you, and I do want you to know that we did receive your document.
Pardon me?
We did receive the document that was sent.
Good, great.
And board members did have a chance to review it. Everyone has a copy, so we have that in front of us. Feel free to begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you. We have two requests. The first is related to the release of information about graduates, and the second is about requiring a graduate to take the licensing exam within 6 months of licensing and receiving the ATT or the authorization to test. Both of these suggested policies will ultimately provide safe and competent nurses to protect the public. The first important change in policy requested is to provide the schools information about what students take the exam, when they take it, and the resulting scores. This is vital information necessary to the directors to ensure that graduates are identified who need continued support. Currently, some serious problems have been identified. Test takers were incorrectly assigned to the wrong schools, and in some cases, just one student failing results in a drastic consequence to a school. We'd like to avoid that. We'd like to participate and help verify those students and make sure that we're attributed the right student. As a point of information, we understand the RN directors are provided this information by the Board of Registered Nurses. And after a limited inquiry and discussion with directors who have schools in other states, this information is also provided by several other states, such as Nevada, Indiana, Kansas, and New Jersey. The current policy of denying schools the identity of the test takers hampers the school's ability to evaluate program outcome and provide graduates the proper remediation and review. For these reasons, we're asking that this information be provided to the directors of the names of those test takers, when tested, and resulting scores. The second request for policy change is to require graduates to take their licensing exam within 6 months of receiving their ATT. Many students who wait a lengthy period of time may not retain the knowledge that they need to be competent practitioners. Currently, we have no time limit in our policy at BVNPT to take the NCLEX exam after the ATT. A graduate who tests more than a year after graduation can cause serious patient safety issue. A person who lets years lapse may possibly pass the test, but may be a safety risk to the public. If they do not take the exam within 6 months, the graduate should then be required to reapply to the directors. And this would result in higher pass rates. It would help the individual schools monitor their outcome and allow the schools to retest the competence and ultimately protect the public safety. So this process could also have a fee, which can then provide the ability for financing the additional applications. So we strongly suggest as an organization that a new policy requiring testing within 6 months of receiving the ATT be implemented by the board. We appreciate this opportunity to come before you and present this, and we as directors are resolved to contribute to the continued professional development of our graduates.
Thank you, Ms. Estrada. Are you open to taking questions from board members? I'm sure that we have a few. I'd like to start off just by saying, as far as the first recommendation about receiving names from the board of your students, you are correct. The RN board does do that, and there are other states that do that. I did verify that. I see how that could be helpful. The way that I see it, that it could be helpful is if you see that a student hasn't tested, you could reach out to them and encourage them to take the test. I see that that could be a useful, something useful that could be done. I'd like to get feedback from staff and also board members on that. The second one, requiring students to take the test within 6 months and then reapply to the director, I'm not sure that's legal. I mean, I think there's things written in stone that say you have a certain amount of time to take the test. I'm not sure that can be changed. Rebecca, do you have any?
Actually, so more to the point, the second request is not on your agenda currently. So that second portion is not something up for discussion today because it wasn't properly noticed to allow the public to come discuss that item. The first, what is agendized is the consideration of publication of student names with quarterly pass rate results. So presumably that first request is for discussion today.
Now, the whole report from the directors was in the materials and posted on the website. So anyone who clicked on it would know that this is what the report is. Does that?
That sounds helpful. Okay. But in terms of the legal requirements of Bagley Keene and agendizing items, that second request was not noticed on the agenda.
May I comment on that?
Sure.
We did not word that particular piece. We don't really want the scores to be published. We just want it to be available to the directors of the schools. So we did not actually word that item.
So what I think you're saying is that we're going to talk about number one here, that when you receive test results, you do not receive names attached to those test results. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so what you're requesting is to get the names along with the pass or fail status
Yes, correct.
reported to you. And yes, I know that it is done. There's a possibility of it being done. We can discuss that, and I welcome board member comments. I have a couple on this side, and then we'll go to Mr. DeBrownstein. But yes, I can see how that could be something helpful to you, because we talk to your schools a lot about why aren't you following up with your graduates and making sure they're testing. And if you knew who had and hadn't tested, it would help you to follow up with them, no?
Yeah.
Vice President Moreno?
My question was actually related to the second item, but if I'm correct, that's not up for discussion?
That's right.
Okay, so I withdraw my question.
Any other questions here on the left side? Mr. Vertito?
Being the educator, I'm well aware of the difficulties the schools have in regards to trying to figure out when their cohorts test. It becomes very important because we base their evaluations on these pass rates. So I support their quest to get these names because they go through these roundabout methods to try to see who's passed and who's failed. And if we're holding them accountable, they need all the information necessary to make the corrections needed in their curriculum or with their faculty. And they can't do that if we tie one hand behind their back. So I support this, their initiative.
I'm sorry, Ms. Norton.
I support this initiative also, and my question really is more about how do we make this happen, and how soon could it happen?
Yes, Mr. DeBrownstein, and then Ms. Zabala.
My question is, who gives the best information? In your experience, does the RM board get you guys the information just the way you want it laid out? In your experience, is there a certain state that does better than one or the other? As far as the formatting of getting you the information you're requesting related to number one, who does it the best? What's the best model to follow?
I think we'd be happy with the California, the registered nurse format that they provide. However, I'm open to maybe comments from other directors that have the experience from other states, because I did not personally talk to any of those boards.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the arguments that have been said, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding both sides of the argument, which I can't say I do as a public member. So I hear what you're saying from the school's perspective, and I hear what we're saying from our, LVN practitioners' perspective. But can anyone speak to what might be the opposite side of this argument other than just confidentiality? I mean, Kamika, what's the other side of the argument so I can consider it?
My understanding, and then I know Dr. Brown has information, was that it was, we were working out, well, there was a confidentiality issue. That was the only thing I had heard. We'll also can hear from NEC staff and Dr. Brown on that. Do you have something to?
So yes, there actually is a FERPA issue related to it. FERPA, as far as the Federal Education Regulation Practice, Public Act, in terms of releasing their information, because it's tied to the school and their licensing issues, information, their results. You might not want to actually release that information. The student may not, you actually have to, school and school-related results, a student has to actually list who they want to have access to their school-related results. And so they have to choose that. And so we are actually circumventing that by saying, well, we'll give their results, because the results come from NCSBN. And then at one point, the board actually did have redact that and simply have a year and a person. But we are actually circumventing that by going back and giving it to giving to the school. For example, if a student wanted to give his mom his grades, he has to actually go to the school and actually say, my mom can have my grades. By then releasing the licensure exam information to the school, we are going around that because they actually have to go back to the school and give the school authority to see that information. So that would be the counter argument.
Okay, so what we're
Can I
doing
have
is
Can I make a comment?
Ms. Avella? Yeah, just hold on one second.
Okay.
So this would take away the right from the student to keep that information confidential.
That's correct.
I think what is being asked, if I'm reading your document correctly, is that the students would sign a release.
Yes, we would require the students to sign a release.
Okay, does that mean they have a choice, or to attend your institution they have to sign it?
They always have a choice.
Okay, so they still, you're only, in this provision here, you're only giving them the opportunity, you're not requiring it. So if you have a student that wants to keep it confidential, they still have that right?
Yes, we have to abide by that.
Okay.
And also a clarification that the information on pass or fail would not be publicized on the website. It would only go to one person, the director of the school.
That's correct.
If a confidentiality release had been signed by the student. So it's very limited circumstances, I believe, is what we're saying.
Yes.
May I ask for clarification,
Yes,
Madam
John.
President? So if I'm understanding this correctly, unless the student affirmatively opts out of the disclosure requirement, the default would be disclosure of the test results. Is that correct?
Would you restate that question?
You indicated that the student always has a choice to opt out. So unless the student affirmatively does that by checking the box, opt out, the default would be disclosure.
That's correct. To the director, to the school, not the public.
Well, my thinking is that we have a very important stakeholder group that has not been heard then on this matter.
And I think there was some, I think what you are trying to ask Mr. Deerking maybe was not understood. Let me try to clarify. Am I correct in saying that for a student's name of their name and their pass or fail result, to be released to you, they would have to actually sign a document? If they did not actually read a document and sign it, it would not be released. That's the default.
That's correct.
Okay, so what Mr. Deerking was asking you is, like a credit card company says, we're going to release your information if you do not sign this and send it back to us, meaning it's automatically going to be released unless you object. That is not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is it will not be released unless you approve. Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about?
Well,
Ms. Estrada?
I think the details of that would certainly be up to our legal advice. Either way works for us. We just want to make sure that we're able to have the information that can help evaluate our programs and improve our results for students. So the details of how to do that, I'm open to looking at that, and I don't know if we have any feedback from the other directors, but...
So from what I understood, it would be you would have to specifically approve it. You would have to specifically say, yes, I allow the board to release my name and pass or fail.
That's not what I understood. My understanding is unless they make a deliberate, unless they thoroughly read through the document and say, I want to opt out, they're going to be opted in automatically. So I think that's the issue, and that's what Mr. Deerking said might be something for consideration, and we need to hear from the student population. It's sort of like what you said, when I get a credit card agreement that has 1,000 lines of tiny, tiny print, and way at the bottom it says, you can opt out, but it's really a pathway to opt in.
The other way is better, that you would have to opt in.
I see. Well, I would look at perhaps how other states have done it to address that issue, so that we're meeting the standard in the industry of how that's done.
Dr. Basti Martinez, do you have a question?
Thank you. What is interplayed here is the Ferpa requirement, which is a federal law that protects students in all of our institutions. And even though they might opt out in the way we're discussing, they have to be told about the Ferpa requirement. And then they can decide whether they do or do not. Some of the examples that do this nationally, when students take any of the major tests like ACT or graduate record exams, it has been tested and legally approved under FERPA, considering what the guidelines are, how to have a student or a test taker release their information. Same goes for posting of grades. We cannot legally post grades.
Thank you. Mr. DeBronstein and then Vice President Moreno.
Okay, it seems as though the RM board has a fair handle on this. So I would motion that we direct board staff to work with the RM board and look at their model, and with our legal counsel come up with a way that gets this basic information in a legal way. If it's a opt-out, if it's a clear yes or no, but direct our staff to work with the RM board to come up with a model that will semi-meet this need.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been...
Are we at that point yet, Madam President?
We're going to have further discussion. So there is a motion and a second, but we will continue discussion. There's a question from Vice President Moreno, and then I have a specific concern and some ideas about Mr. DeBronstein's motion. Vice President Moreno?
Director Estrada, or maybe someone from our board, I'm curious, in the release of information, are we just referring to the student's name and the school that they attended, or is there other personal information that would also be released?
I think we'd be happy with the name of the student, because we have their record already. We actually have all their names and all the other information. We just need to have the pass, the rate, their name, and the school.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Vice President Moreno, there's several ways that the information comes. It comes with the student's name, the school, both the date, the institution, the date, the pass-fail, and also the number of attempts. And so I think that's also, so you then can scale down or up that query information and how then it's actually transmitted to the school in terms of if you want to then remove perhaps the name, and you want to just simply give the quarter year that they passed, and then the number of attempts, and so then the school has that, so you can also tailor that as well. But the information comes in a large data dump with a lot of information. But there is no, in terms of some safety concerns, it does not provide us with, say, a social security number.
Right, okay. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Yes, I would, Mr. DeBronstein made a motion, and, like I said earlier, we went to Chicago, and when we went to Chicago, Pearson VUE was there, and it had a big sign that said NCLEX, and so I approached them and said, have I got some questions for you? And so I did speak with, I have the names of the, one of the vice presidents and a president of assessment, vice president of assessment at Pearson View. And we discussed some of these concerns. I also did speak with President Jackson of the BRN about what they do. I'm not sure their exact method is going to work for us, but what I would also suggest is that maybe we talk to the BRN and a couple other states, because I'm not sure the BRN's process is exactly what would work for us. However, there is a motion on the floor and a second. We do have some options. We can have further discussion. We can also, don't forget, we're going to be talking later about having an education committee. So this is something we could also have the education committee follow up with, or I think as Mr. DeBronstein's motion said, staff. Yes, Ms. Avella?
I just at some point want to clarify my understanding of the motion.
Exactly.
So I don't know if
Yes.
that's appropriate now.
Mr. DeBronstein, would you like to clarify your motion?
Well, no, I have a specific question. I have no problem with trying to work through language that's acceptable, but are we saying yes, but for working out the language, or are we saying we're going to work out the language and see how this is and bring it back for a vote of yay or nay? You know,
I'm also wondering, I want to clarify a couple things. Is this, the intention of the motion is to look at the board not publishing names, but producing names to the schools? So in other words, it's not coming from NCLEX, it's board releasing information to the schools. Or are you simply saying you want staff to look at what other entities are doing, whether it's BRN or jurisdictions?
The intent was, with the understanding that the BRN already had the best model in place, to use that as a starting point, making sure it's legally sound, and moving that forward with the intent that they would get the names connected to the test taker and their pass or fail. If we get into it and find out, you know, this isn't really legal, we need to discuss this a little bit more, it needs to come back to the board, I'm okay with that too. But
And then just a point of clarification, all of the results comes from the NCSBN.
Thanks. Also, it sounds like what you're discussing, because obviously there are IPA concerns with releasing information, so it sounds like you're suggesting individual waivers be signed by students, and I think there then is kind of a logistical issue for staff in terms of holding, processing, reviewing waivers for I don't know how many thousands of students. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the issue and how that would function.
Thank you. Ms. Norton has a question. Ms. Avella?
It's not really a question, well, maybe it is a question, but I don't know how we can hold the schools accountable, and we base whether we place them on a provisional approval upon what their pass rates are if they can't have accurate information regarding who has taken the test and when, and I don't know how they can provide outreach to students if they're not identified who has taken a test and who hasn't passed it. So I understand the privacy, I understand the legal constraints, but it seems like this is a good idea and we should at least vet it, because what we want is we want our schools to be successful, we want our students to be successful. So
I agree with you, Ms. Norton. I know we're repeatedly telling schools, why aren't you outreaching to those who have not passed the test? And then you're telling us we don't know who's passed the test and who hasn't. So that is something that's come up many, many, many times. We're going to continue with board member comment. There is a motion on the floor. After that, we will take public comment. We will not forget about you. I will have public comment on this issue. Ms. Avella and then Ms. Durkin.
why don't you go?
Mr. Durkin, would you like?
Oh, sure.
Anyone go first.
Even before we get to that point, relating to the issue of the test, and one of your stated rationales would be as a tool or mechanism to identify those students who need additional support prior to taking the test. Don't you have that capacity now? Do your directors have a good sense of who may pass the test and who will may
We
not?
only have the ATT, the authorization to test that we give them, and we certainly are aware of that.
Well, now I'm talking about your academic programming. Do your directors have a general sense of who would be a candidate that would be likely to pass the test based on observations clinically and academically?
Yes.
And I have one comment on that, and also Dr. Brown would like to respond. Mr. Durkin, I just wanted to clarify my comment, and I believe Ms. Norton's comment. We were talking about people that have already taken the test.
And I understand that.
Dr. Brown?
And to both Mrs. Estrada's point and Board Member Durkin, some schools do also use an additional tool that offers them information about test takers, but it provides them information for test takers on an aggregate basis. So they do get to see some information, but again, it will be the whole. The plus to that is that they do get information about the body of their test takers. The drawback of that information is that it does. An outlier can bring that information, can bring that down. It also could be someone that is a first-time test taker that, say, tested 10 years after and registered on that school. So I just want to provide a little balanced information that they do have statistical information available to them that they can purchase. Right now, it is de-identified, but there are plus and minuses to that resource currently.
Any other board member? Ms. Avella?
Well, I just have an overall concern that we're setting forth a proposal or talking about going forward to vet a proposal that affects a constituency that is not here to address it. So, I mean, we're hearing from the Southern California directors of VN programs. I don't know if there's a student organization that represents the interests of students, but I think it's, we're doing this without the main constituent, and I'd like to get someone to talk about their perspective before I move forward and feel comfortable creating some plan here.
Thank you very much. Any other board member questions? We do need to take public comment before we vote on a motion because there's the motion on the floor. So we cannot vote until we take public comment. If there's members of the public that would like to speak on this agenda item, please come forward.
I'm sorry. Mr. Durkin, I don't understand the motion.
You don't understand what?
I don't understand the motion. I don't understand what we're voting on.
Mr. DeBrownstein, would you like to repeat your motion?
And if I can amend it at this point.
If the second
will.
agrees, then that
Okay.
amend your motion.
Let's give direction to board staff that we start with the RN board's model of how they get this information that's being requested.
Researching the model?
Yeah, looking at what they're already doing, to get this information to the schools, the way they're requesting it here for the those that have taken the test, that they can get their names, and that we start with that RN model, work with our legal counsel to make sure that we can be legally sound in doing that or making some adjustment. And then my amendment would be, and then report back to the board as to the next step as to moving it forward.
Is everyone clear, or do we need some?
I'll go ahead and support the change.
Okay.
So we will have an opportunity, this is a question, we will have an opportunity to vote on whether or not we want to go forward. We're talking about just setting forth a proposal of how we would do this. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, have the staff come up with a plan as to how we would do this.
That's fine. I still feel like there's a need to hear from the student constituency.
And I know one thing, we can put it out there more publicly too. I understand we would want to hear from all stakeholders and all constituents. The meeting was publicly noticed. No student organizations did come forward. It was noticed to everyone. There was no secret. I don't believe there's any student organization here. They had the opportunity to be here. But I understand your concern.
But I would say that it doesn't necessarily need to be a student organization. It could just as easily be any student sitting back there.
Yeah.
I would welcome if they want to make a public comment, of course. You're talking about 1 or 2 students in a population of, I don't know what the population of students is. So I'm trying to get a representation of a student's perspective on this.
Okay, so yes, Mr. Durkin.
And even before we get to that point, can the objective be achieved in a less obtrusive manner? For example, can there be voluntary contact or compliances between the school and the student? Can the student voluntarily give the information? And the answer is yes.
Yes, they can currently. I know that historically, that has not proved hasn't worked out. Over the years that we've been discussing this, the students don't always voluntarily report. The other thing that I do want to also just make clear is that this is a widely practiced thing. Many states do this. Many boards do this, if not the majority. So this is not something new we're making up. So there is procedure out there. I'm sure there has been some benchmark out there. So I just want to also make that clear. Any
Yes.
other board member discussion?
What you said about most states do this, most states don't license PTs. 46 states in the union don't consider it necessary to license PTs. We're not going to jump off that bridge either without fully evaluating all the consequences and hearing from all the constituents.
Right, there's boards of nursing, some different boards of nursing, some do not license PTs, others do license people that we don't license. So there is a common core, the majority of the PNs. There are other PN boards out there, and they also do this. So yes, the boards are not identical, and there are boards that also have licensed medical assistants under them, for example, Arizona. So yes, the boards are not identical. However, there is a practice out there that is widely used. Ms. Baste-Martinez and then Mr. Vertito.
Thank you. If I'm understanding correctly, we really want to look at the principle around how do we get this information to directors and schools. Not necessarily are we concerned about why do or why not all licensed vocational or practical nursing licensure bureaus do this. We really, if I'm understanding correctly, are looking for ways on how do we best help the schools be successful in ensuring they get the best information as quickly as possible so that ultimately the public is protected by having only those students that are most successful out there with licensure. That's what I'm understanding.
Mr. Vertito?
Thank you. What the schools are asking is that they have the information to make changes to their curriculum. That was not me.
We're getting a message.
Okay. Mr. Vertito, would you like to continue?
I don't know. Thank you, Madam President. Being a teacher, I'm well aware of the need for an instructor and a director to have this information. We hold them accountable for maintaining state pass rates. And if they're denied this key information, the only ones who legally should deny them are the students themselves. And we are giving them that option. But we hold them accountable for having pass rates that meet the law. And if we deny them the opportunity to try to get that information, we are doing them a disservice because we're holding them accountable, but we're not giving them the information they need. The only people who really have the authority to say yay or nay are the students. And we are giving them that opportunity to the school and to the school to get the information and the student to say yes or no. And everything else is nothing more than mechanics on how to achieve it. So we need to move forward and explore, which is why I support Mr. Bronstein, to explore those opportunities because it's not fair to the school to hold them accountable, yet withhold information that they need to make the changes necessary in their curriculum.
Ms. Norton?
It almost feels like the assumption is that the students wouldn't want this help, and I don't believe that to be true. I think that if a student tested and didn't pass, that they would be welcomed to any kind of support that they could get, and this will help that student get this assistance. So I see a student standing in line, and if I may, I would ask that the others let her come first, because she is the voice of the constituent that we are talking about.
Great, thank you. So I think we're ready to move to public comment unless I see any objections. Okay, Mrs. Strada, there's some public lined up behind you. I would like to now entertain comments from the public on this agenda item. I see you coming forward. If you would like to introduce yourself, you may also remain anonymous, that's your right.
My name is Jacqueline Fletcher, and I'm an LVN student.
My name is Roxana Ortiz, and I'm an LVN student.
Welcome, thank you for being here today. What would you like to comment? What would you?
Personally, as a student body, I feel that numbers help the school, which are here to help us. If I can't, when I'm reviewing schools to go or attend, if they don't have accurate numbers of passing or failing, that limits my selectability as far as which school is best for me. And schools are molded and changed according to their rates. And if they don't have accurate rates, they can't improve, which in turn they won't be able to fully and effectively help us.
Thank you. Good morning.
I'd like to agree with what she said. I say the schools already know our passing and failing rate as it is on a daily basis with what we're taking, so why not let them know our state exam and how we did on that as well?
Thank you. Again, ma'am, if you would like to introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Sheila Burke, and I'm with Concord College.
Thank you.
And I want to address several of the points that were raised by yourself and other members of the board.
Please.
I believe that all of the schools that are currently approved by the BVNPT have in their admission processes a disclosure on FERPA. It's called informed consent, that we provide every applicant with information about how their rights are safeguarded at a federal level, and that their information can only be disclosed. We then provide them with how that data is used. There's opportunity to amend that and just add a line. The students are accountable, the applicants are accountable for being aware and informed of their FERPA. We make every effort to make sure they understand that we preserve that right. Now, I do want to point out, we're not talking about students, we're talking about graduates of programs. And at the point that they exit the program, you may have had a really good idea of their likelihood, and we do a lot of standardized and individualized evaluations as to their likelihood of whether or not they'll pass the exam. However, once they graduate from the program and they are in their life as a non-student, many factors influence their willingness to share what is going on with them. And what we are accountable for is we're accountable for them beyond their relationship with the school as a student. Because we do have to take accountability as to whether or not our academic and procedural process as an education facility lends to their being successful in obtaining their license. So we have an accountability that extends beyond the time that they're actually students. We do the same thing with FERPA. They could be graduated for 5 years, and if somebody calls and says, well, I'd like to know how so-and-so did, we still protect it even though they're no longer, so it's nearly a contractual relationship. Other states do this. I mean, a possibility would be we could propose to NCSBN that when they fill out their request to test, that maybe we add a line there. This is a barrier to the schools being able to contact graduates and help them, offer them support. And it's very, this is, you stated the volume of people that are licensed in California has LVNs. It's a very significant population of people that many times are facing multiple lifestyle challenges and have a lot of pressure, and it's not always easy for them to retain what they're told at admission, and we want to be able to let them know and reaffirm that there's support post-graduation to help them get ready for NCLEX. So not being able to know when, and depending on the size of the program, if you only have 4 or 5 students and they graduate and you think that they're going to pass, but 2 of them have major life issues that occur, and they don't know that they could call, even though you tell them they may not retain it. They don't know they can call and get support, and they go ahead and test because family is pressuring them to get their license, and they fail. It has devastating consequences to them. So there are times that schools are making weekly calls, sending emails, trying to locate people that have graduated to suggest that they come back and get support, and without knowing if somebody's taken the test and they have failed, the approach that the schools use is different than people who have not yet tested. While there's tremendous validity to the aggregate information, there's a time delay. And every day since their date of graduation that delays them being able to test is at issue. If they work with the school as a graduate and we can help support them prepare, we may actually say take an extra 2 weeks, but be able to give them the guidance. So I think there's a great deal of value to the students, but these are individuals that once they're out of school, there's expectations that they're going to achieve their license, and we just want to be able to have a level playing field that we can provide them with the support that we believe that would be in their best interest to provide safe practitioners.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, would you like to?
Good morning. Thank you, Board and Madam President, for hearing us, and I would like to add as a public comment. My name is Arbella Baddick, and I'm from Glendale Career College, and I speak also with the Southern California directors on this. So I thank you for hearing us, and I thank the Board for considering options, and I respect the fact that we are all looking for the privacy of the students and not to be able to violate their privacy. But in looking what the United States Education Department has said as legally on their website, when it comes down to FERPA, it indicates generally schools must have written permission from the parent or eligible student in order to release any information. That is true. However, FERPA allows the school to disclose records without consent following the parties under the conditions 34 CRF 99.31, and it gives examples.
Ma'am, could you tell me what website you're reading from?
The U.S. Department of Education.
Thank you.
It says school officials do not have to have consent when they release this as an interest, as an educational purpose. It says other schools, they can release it as if they're transferring to another school. They have special audits. They can release this for evaluation purpose without the consent of the student. Appropriate parties in connection to financial aid. Also, organizations that conduct certain studies on behalf of the school. Accrediting organizations. Also, anything that is given to them with a subpoena as well, and in emergencies as well. Then it goes a little bit further, and it says the schools may disclose without consent directory information such as student's name, address, telephone number, date of birth, honors and awards, dates of attendance. However, they must tell the parents and eligible students about the directory information, allowing them to do that in a reasonable amount of time, which basically they have a right then to object legally and in written notice.
And I believe what you're talking about is schools releasing information.
Absolutely.
Correct.
So in other words, and we understand, and I think you have said it clearly, we're held bound by our rates. And this information is definitely going to help us, not only to help us increase our rates, but more importantly, to help those students that we cannot get in contact with, because then we're still held to accrediting bodies that help us with placement rates. And even if a person does not pass it on the first time, the second or the third time still helps us with placement rates, but we have to answer to accrediting body as just as well. We will not be able to do this if we cannot allow the student remediation. And more importantly, most times we don't want them to go out and pay for remediation when we can offer that for free for them. Why would they have to go out and pay? And so this information is not only helpful for us, but more importantly, it's helpful for the student, which I think we're all at interest. And to be able to safely say that if a student continues to be out there and stuck and thinking that a school won't help them, we don't want them to feel that way either, where they have paid this money, thousands of dollars, and we have the resources to make them better. This information will allow us not only to do that, but in the best interest of the students. So we're asking you not only that, we know it may be new, but if other states are doing it, just giving us just the name and the pass or fail is really all that we're asking. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am Mary McHugh, Director of Angeles College. And my first comment would be with the Honorable Todd DeBronston's permission. I'd like to respond to his earlier question about what might be ideal. And what I can speak to is when I was Dean of Nursing at University of Indianapolis. The Indianapolis Board, first of all, does not require a written release. It is automatically assumed that this is part of the expectation in a licensure situation. And they release to us not only the names, what California's BRN releases is the name, the date of testing, pass, fail, and if this was a first attempt or not. That's all we get for the BRN. But Indiana releases the actual report from the National Council telling the student who failed what areas they passed, what areas they did not pass, and we were then able, with our remediation, to contact those students and specifically focus the remediation on the areas they did not pass. And as a result, I cannot think of a single student who did not get licensed on the second attempt if they did not pass the first attempt.
That's great.
Yeah, and we admitted 60 students every 6 months. So we didn't have a tiny school, we didn't have a huge school, but we had a lot. Then just 3 tiny little comments. I've done a bit of consulting around the country on helping schools improve their pass rates. And some of that was in the compact states, which all have essentially the same Nurse Practice Act. And I don't know, is that 20 states? I'm not sure of the data.
It's a little more than that now.
Okay, all of those states, I know for a fact, get this information without signing a release. None of the states that I've consulted in have this issue. I have to question whether the overall California low pass rate is that we don't get the same information every other state's board does. To the best of my ability, and I've done some calling around, haven't hit all 50 states, but at least 30 of the 50. I cannot find a single other nursing board that withholds this information, nor other than California was I able to find even one that requires a release of information. So I don't know if that data is helpful, but I just thought I would share it. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam President and Board. Information matters. The void of information is the decline in the profession. The state of California currently ranks the lowest in its pass rates for the nation. If the principals that request this valuable information are given even a smidgen of it, then that has enhanced the process and has continued to protect the consumer. While an employee at the Board of Vocational Nursing, I used to submit to all of the programs a copy of all of the NCLEX reports so that all of them knew what each of them were doing and how things were going. At a point, I was requested to redact information that would allow them to know even more, i.e. the month and the year of a graduate, so you knew who was delivered and you knew who tested and what passed and failed, and therefore, you had some kind of gauge. You had a list of names already in 2012 or 2011 or 2014. That information was withdrawn from the programs, further debilitating the process. Again, it is not that the students are embarrassed that they failed. It is that the process, the state of California, is no longer going to be embarrassed that its programs could not reach out to its students to provide the much-needed remedial support. I was informed that it was the legal counsel that had determined that the information needed to be redacted. It is perhaps to go directly back to our legal counsel and ask our legal counsel on what basis that decision was made and why the determination. And had they done their homework across the nation to find out if they remove such pertinent information, what indeed have they added to the conundrum we face now? I thank you for taking the initiative into consideration. I respect all of you and know that you will make the right decision today and in the future.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Brian Chilstrom, Vice President at Pacific College. To Mr. Braunstein's point, the RN Board, the Medical Board of Examiners, the Osteopathic Board of Examiners, Board of Dentistry, State Bar, they all have the same issues. They've already established a process. I'd like to see maybe the board analyze what they're all doing. There's no need to reinvent the wheel here. Second is that coming from a person who's analyzed LVN test scores for about the past 15 years for many different colleges, including the colleges that I've worked for, there's only a few items that are important to the consumer, student looking to go to a school, and also to a school trying to improve their test scores. What's very important is number of students tested in a quarter, what cohort the student came from, and was it a pass or fail. A student's name only personalizes the score. And that personalization comes from a school maintaining a rapport with a student all the way through as the student matriculates from the day they walk through the door to the day they take the test. If you got a good relationship with the student's going to call you, they're going to come back to you, they're going to say, gee, I'm not sure how I did, and you're going to offer the support at that time. If you don't have a rapport with the student, you're not going to get that information. And the reason why I'm not totally convinced that's very important to a school is, what's the fiscal impact to the board? Now, if you have a student and you have a school opting in and out of students into the process, you click a box to release the student's name, and if the student says, no, I want to be opt out, who at the board, where's the budget to have the personnel sit there and go through thousands of these opt-ins and opts-out?
Yes.
Do you have a budget established? I mean, I'd rather see more NECs, to be honest with you. That'd be a bigger help to the colleges.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we have one more public comment, I believe.
Hi, good morning. I'm Marie Cordero, Director of Annenberg School of Nursing. I'm also the Secretary of the Southern California Directors and the one that has worked on this letter and on the committee to draft this letter. And I'd like to say it's been a long time coming, and we've worked on this very hard, and we so appreciate the support that many of you readily and really seem to understand the plight of the schools. So I want to thank you very much for that. It will mean so much to us. However, I'm a little disappointed. about our second request, this letter came as one document. It was not broken out. No one called us. I mean, I'm assuming someone reviewed this letter. We had 2 issues, and now we're told that the issue cannot be discussed, and I'm again disappointed because, as you recall, it took us a while. There was a miscommunication, and we had requested this to be on the agenda about, if this original letter is dated December 11th, 2015, so you can see how long we've been working on this. And I'm extremely disappointed that we're now told that we cannot consider our second request. So I would like to formally request, please tell me what I need to do as the secretary so we can get the other item on the agenda for discussion at a subsequent meeting.
Yes, would staff like to, and also we have legal, maybe? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. For the second request to be taken up, would you like to explain what we need to do?
It would need to be placed on your agenda. Oh, I don't think meaning either the board can choose to have it on its next agenda, you can discuss with the EO about putting it on your agenda. It would need to be on the agenda. I don't develop the agenda.
The other option we have is that we are forming an education committee. We have formed an education committee. That could also be a possibility.
You could discuss putting it on the agenda now.
I'd really like some decision here, because this is what happened last time with this request, and it got totally missed, and we then had to wait again. So I'd like to say that we're happy to help any way we can, but you have to give us some direction.
I totally understand. And Dr. Brown actually, I think, is going to be having a comment.
So my recommendation, just so that you're seen more expeditiously, would be that we go ahead and put this on the Education Committee. We'll talk further about their role, but that way you do not have a delay. I appreciate that you have been actually seeking to come before the board since February, and so I don't want you to have to wait any longer. And so the Education Committee meets with more regularity, and so then that way this goes before them and then subsequently comes before the full board. And so I think that way you guys do not lose momentum. Right? And so I think that would be what I would recommend with Madam President, and if you agree, that would be.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more public comment.
Good morning. Carrie Wybrew with Concord Career Colleges, and first I want to really thank our nursing education consultants for the work that they do, and doing the best that they can with all of our schools to help us when we do run into troubles in trying to address our problems with our pass rates, or if we need to look at those closer.
Oh, microphone.
Can you hear me? No? Yes?
I think he's working on it right now.
Okay.
You're very tough to hear.
Really?
But-
Now, I dare tell that to my children or any of my friends.
Okay, you want to try again?
How's that? Oh, there, okay. All right. So I guess I wanted to just reinforce what many other of the educators and also a couple of the students shared with you, and many of you that might have seen me talking up here before know that I work in various states, and I support in 8 different states, 16 nursing programs, and have worked with various boards of nursing. And even as recently of this year, I've worked with the board, and they, fluidly shared the graduate names and how many times had they passed and all of that. And it was very helpful in our analysis and in how we were going to put together to make changes to that. And they're actually in one of the top 10 states in the pass rates, what they get for pass rate outcomes for LPNs. that information is really valuable. And even when we had the cohort graduation dates, that was helpful because at least we could identify that, okay, it's this cohort. So even not having that, I feel like both of our hands are behind our back and we have a blindfold because it's just like, here's some numbers that can help us to a very limited extent. So any kind of identifying information, even cohort information is helpful. But if the next step of taking it to at least vetting it and giving the opportunity, because I know it's not, you know, rocket science. Like you said, there's a lot of processes that are already in place. So thank you
Thank
for...
you very much. Okay, I do not see any further members of the public coming up for comment. I do see our legal counsel approaching the microphone.
Yeah, as you're wrapping up your discussion here, I want to make it clear, the California Information Practices Act prevents release of information that can be linked to individuals. So it's a California law, and unless there's something that would allow it. One of the things I'm struggling with as someone who would be analyzing how it could legally work, one of the things I'm really trying to understand is, you know, how the information can't be obtained from their own students. And I think a couple people touched on that, but as legal analysis of how to release information is going to be important, I'm wondering why the board is the entity that would be releasing it when it's their own students. I don't know if there's information available.
So we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Do we need to repeat the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And I welcome.
Okay, can we replay the video? Okay, start with the RN board's model of how they get this information to the schools with answering their request to get the tester's name after they have taken the NCLEX exam, that we're going to direct board staff to look at it and get back with us as a board, also including legal counsel to make sure it's legally sound.
Great. Is there further board discussion?
Yeah, I just feel a need to clarify in light of public comment, which of course we take very seriously and listen to, but I said that I was perfectly fine with going forward with a process that vetted and researched this and to find a way that we could accomplish this, but it is very important to me to make sure that we were doing that in light of honoring the student's right to confidentiality. So as long as we're doing that, I'm fine with going forward to research it, which is what the record will show.
So right now, I'd like to take a vote on Mr. de Brownstein's motion, starting on my far left, Ms. Norton.
Yes.
Mr. Vertito.
Yes.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Yes.
Ms. Endozo.
Yes.
Vice President Moreno.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. de Brownstein.
Yes.
Ms. Avella.
Yes.
Mr. Dierking.
No.
Let the record show we have a 9 yes and a 1 no, or 8 yes and a 1 no. Okay. So that motion passes. Okay, now as I mentioned before, we are going to actually move up 22C, Education Report, and that is part of Dr. Brown's EO report and possibly also includes nursing education consultant staff, but I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Madam President, and I'm actually really glad that we did a nice segue to this. Appreciating that the staff, that the board has actually reviewed this report, I will actually just do a very high-level overview. I want to just call out the purpose of us actually reviewing this out of sequence is that it fits in nicely as a backdrop as we go into reviewing both the Education Committee's reports as well as then our conversation about the different education schools. The first thing I actually would like to talk to the board about is just some exciting news, both who we have in the audience as well as what's going to happen starting September. We will have a full complement of our entire budgeted FTE of NECs filled. We will have all 6 Thank you, Ricardo and Ms. Lee, who's in the audience from HR, for all of your efforts. And thank you, Cheryl, and the beautiful NEC team for all of your efforts this whole time. And I apologize, I don't see her. She might have left now. If you could stand, our newest NEC. Thank you. I'm so excited to have you. Starting September, we will have a full 6 NECs. That is our full budgeted allocation. We have not, yes, I agree. Madam President, how long has it been that we've have not had a full complement?
Before I came to the board, years.
Mr. Vertito, could you tell me how long?
At least 8 years.
Yeah.
So this is very, very exciting. So all of the consultation that you guys have been looking for and support, we will now be able to provide. So I'm very, very excited for that. And this is the really exciting thing about that is that we will be having them strategically located. We will have them both in the north, central, and south. And so that's really exciting news. So I just want to call that out. Just to do a quick high level of this education report, the things that I want to really highlight about this report is that if you look at our makeup of our VN and PT schools, we have a larger percentage with about 58% of our schools being proprietary. I want to make sure that we emphasize that that is proprietary and not private, that is for-profit and profit-driven. In comparison to our counterpart of RN who has a flip of public, right? And so with that being, that very much influences both the makeup and our structure. When we start talking about this in terms of licensing, in terms of educational standards, that weighs very heavily in terms of our the type of makeup and the type of actual school body and academic partners that we have. And so I just want to call that out for the board and actually level set, because that is a very different entity in comparison to the RN board, who has probably about 70% public or private, which is also in terms of stakeholders and board members that they actually are respondent to. Moving on to the next page in regards to that, I want to just call out in terms of our provisionally approved VN boards. I think some of our public has already spoken to this. In terms of the quarter pass rates, which someone pointed out is really important, the quarter pass rate, our pass rate for VN schools, the pass rate right now is 57%. Again, our goal is to be 10% below the California average of the 75, 10% plus or minus, and this is how we're faring. This is really, we are the largest, and we talked at NCSBN, we're really trying to be really not only the largest, but the standard. And so looking at that, that really is really something that we, that's not really an outlier. That's really saying that we are all, the majority of us are moving that way. If you look at our approved, however, VN programs, for first-timers, our approved schools, so those schools that are not on provisional, they are faring at 76% for their quarterly pass rate and 76% for our annual pass rate. So we're very happy to see that. And then if we want to go ahead and move and look at then at our quarter two, we're also seeing for those approved schools at 75%, and then we're looking at our average annual pass rate. This is for quarter two, we're at 82%. National NCSBN published for last year our national average for the entire year, and that we were at 68%. And so that's the full year, right? Taking that, melding that all together. And so I just want to call that out, that as we move across those quarters, that's what we're looking at. And so if you look then at the information in the box, that's how we're faring, and we kind of move up and down throughout those particular quarters, but those are how we're particularly trending for first-time pass rates. In terms of the average that NCSBN is publishing, those are including both first and repeat, and so we tend to see that, and that's also including our provisional and then those that continue to move on. So that's the reason for the discrepancy, just to call that out. Moving on, the other things that I just want to call out is now looking at our approved PT programs. Our approved PT programs, the quarter pass rate is at 70%, with our average annual at 69%. Again, we really want to make sure being that we are pretty much, again, the standard for PT, and there's really pretty much only 3 to 4 states with PT programs, we really want to be the benchmark. And we are actually, the average annual pass rate is about 69%. And so this is really important, particularly we see a lot of our servicemen come out with credits in this area, and we really want to have this as an opportunity. The Veteran Affairs is moving to have them be able to use these credits and come out and have this be an opportunity for them to get into the workforce. And so we really want to see this, and we're not seeing us make the mark as far as getting that 75% pass rate that is the average annual. In terms of provisional, what we're seeing is that our quarterly pass rate for this time is 85.7, but our average annual is actually at about 55.7%. So I just want to again level set that this is where we are as the actual largest state. And then you have there the statistical of approved versus non-approved. In terms of our program requests, our education department, even though they only had 42% of their staff, they did a really good job of processing 146 requests for new faculty. So I know you guys were calling, you were trying to get your requests in, and it was some delays, but know that we hope to be more expedient in those requests, but we were doing the work that you guys needed, and then they processed 130 new requests, so that's fantastic. And then we completed an inspections on 21 programs. 8 on-site programs and 1 program in regards to their initial class. And then finally, we did also include some different proposed analysis in regards to setting up letters, and we also fielded some inquiries. The other thing I wanted to call out is that during this last quarter, we hired an AGPA retired annuitant, which has been helping us with data analysis, which has been fantastic. And then we mentioned about the new hires that we have coming on. So that was just a quick high-level blush. I know that was fast, but I wanted to just lay the foundation of what we are looking for and how we're trying to meet the standard in terms of our education department so far.
Great, and it's so wonderful to hear about the NECs that have been hired on. I know that you were working really hard on that, Dr. Brown, and I see that Ms. Anderson is looking more relaxed lately. So I think it's a good thing. Ms. Avella?
I have a question. So just, you went through a lot of pass rates, and like you said, looking at the table, so we're about 10 percentage points below the national average. Can you speak to what the implications are in terms of how does that affect our mission to protect the public, to protect students, and really what does that mean for us?
Sure. I'm actually going to let Cheryl speak first, and then I'm going to speak after if I can, in terms of how being 10 percentage points below the national average speaks in terms of what that looks like in terms of preparing a competent professional.
I guess I'm not totally sure of what you're asking. As California tests the largest number of candidates in the state, in the nation.
No,
Yet our pass rate is among the lower.
Right.
If are you asking, does that mean?
What's the implication on public safety in California?
It's not necessarily in terms of safety. It's in terms of preparing the necessary workforce for the future, which is the other part of what we're charged with. We're not doing a very good job at this point.
And I think if I'm unpacking a little bit of what you may mean, so our NCLEX is a measure of proficiency and competency, and if we are 10 percentage points below what we're looking for, then what we're demonstrating is that we have not done that charge in terms of preparing someone competent, that minimum threshold of proficiency and competency. And so then when they are at the bedside, or should they be able to become licensed, and they are at the bedside, then we have a deficiency in skill. And so then that becomes an issue in terms of their ability to actually, when we think about medication math, when we think about the ability to actually execute things as far as immunizations on a crying baby for those in the audience. Those things, and doing that critical application, those things are going to be at a, potentially can be at a lesser degree than someone else, than someone, say, Massachusetts, which has a pass rate 20% higher than us. That's where you get into the consumer protection area. The other, does that help?
Yes, yes.
The other thing that you need to always remember is that we're all taking the very same exam.
Yes.
So even though they're in another state, they're taking the same exam as California graduates. They're taking the same exam as is administered in the American territories and some of the foreign countries. So it's the same playing field there.
Okay, that answered my question.
Are there any other board member questions about the 22C education report? Okay, I don't see any. I would like to entertain comments from the public about 22C education report, if there is any. Yes, please, I see one. And if you would like to introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Danetta Garcia. Thank you, Honorable President, and again, members of the board. Sometimes I take the statements made in the general audience or on the board, and then I determine whether there's something I can speak to. The question was asked on what type of position are we in with us being at the bottom, and how does that affect the overall status? As a public consumer who you protect, I find that that is a very deleterious position to be in, because those students, once they do pass, let's say they pass on the 15th try, they are going to be granted a license equal to, without question, to an individual who passes on the first time. So where have we placed the state of California and all of its consumers? That is why the programs were asking for names, dates, places, when, where, why, and how. Because in order to reach them before they must take it the 15th time and never have been reached is important to all of our safety, our parents, our children, people we know, people we don't know, people we will meet. And so that was a very good question to ask, and I thank you, because it is important to each and every one of us. In addition, the pass rates associated with this testing and the way the Education Division describes the importance is that currently on our website, we have an old reflection of pass rates. We currently reflect 2014. So if a consumer goes to look at what are the pass rates and they're told by the Education Division, which I used to have to tell them, well, consider the pass rates, go look at them, and they pull that up. It's reflective of 2014. We are not doing our job on the inside, but we need to do better. And so the complement of having more NECs come along is absolutely the best thing that has ever happened.
I agree with you.
It is the best thing that has ever happened, and it will speak volumes to what the process will do and what the state will be able to feel as being confident in its employees here at the board.
Thank you.
Did I have any more time, or is my time up?
Yes, you do.
Okay. In addition to that...
Actually, no, sorry, I apologize to interrupt. This can be agendized for a future meeting, and I also want to encourage for comments that have already been made that they don't need to be reiterated. There's no motion on the floor, so if the report is done, then we can move on to other topics, and of course...
I have more in regards to the report, to the education report.
Okay, and again, just as long as it's not reiterating things that have already happened, and there's no motion on the floor, there's no further discussion that's needed.
Understood. I thank you for clarification.
It was
just
actually
in the
my
date.
error.
It's all right, let her finish her comment, and then we can...
It was my error to say that we...
Why don't we go ahead and just let her finish?
Okay.
Thanks.
When there's not a motion on the floor, that the public comment does not have to be requested, but we're here, I announced it, please go ahead.
I thank you for your consideration. I'm sure the public appreciates that as well. And I do appreciate what the legal counsel is attempting to do.
Thank you.
In regards to what is written on the graph that you've received, it shows approximately 78 plus or minus programs combined with approved programs, provisional programs, proposed programs. In February, it was 182. That shows a decline in programs. We're moving away from bringing in programs. We're having less and less programs produced every single solitary report period. What is important is that we changed the moratorium announcement that is on the website. It speaks to the issue of the moratorium being lifted in 2015. We're now in 2016. We may want to change that statement and release that the moratorium has been lifted in part, and that we encourage more programs to come forward to present proposals for consideration. I thank you.
Again, sorry. Again, I apologize. I did call public comment out of order, so we did hear from Ms. Garcia, but it's actually not the time for public comment. I'm sorry. Okay, that takes us to number 17, Education Committee Report. Dr. Baste Martinez and Mr. Vertito, Education Member, would you like to present the report to us?
And before we present our report, we want to give you a few comments. The Education Committee of the board is now functioning again. And in that, we are able to help all of you as representative schools to ensure that there is a more timely, more efficient review. And it is our duty as an education committee to review that and establish, under the established guidelines of the board, and then make recommendations to the full board. This, in essence, helps to establish and promote a clear vision, and ultimately, it's helping, and I'm repeating, but I want to make sure it's heard. This helps in making timely and efficient responses to you. We've had our first committee meeting after some time. And at that time, we reviewed 3 institutions. We will have recommendations based on that review that will be discussed by the board. My colleague?
Well, we reviewed 3 schools: Charter College, Canyon Country, and their VN program. The committee realized on the review that the main thing here was lack of clinical skills, and we are noting some of these problems and then the results. This is just indicative of how we're trying to be responsive to each of you. If you're in trouble, we try to identify and meet with you individually. Dr. Martinez, Baste Martinez and I, being educators, understand what you're going through, and we try to look at where some of the solutions were, some of the problems, and try to help you move forward. Pretty much it.
Let me give you the specifics of what the committee is charged to doing, to give some context on what you're hearing. The committee is charged to review the standards established by the board to ensure uniform application and uphold quality. Secondly, the committee seeks to raise the licensure standard to meet or exceed, we've been talking about that, the national average. Third, the committee seeks to eliminate opportunities for fraud in educational activities. And so by having more regular, scheduled reviews as the initial provision or presentation, it really expedites getting information back to schools.
Lastly, to help the new schools that are, or help programs that are hoping to open up either new schools or new campuses, we're going to be seeking to work with the education department to review the initial proposals to start new programs to aid the education unit in processing requests to start new programs. So we're hopefully streamline that a little bit and then cut down on the time request for the board to respond. Currently, we're planning to meet on a monthly basis to be able to help new programs and existing programs beat the time delay. Thank you.
Mr. Vertito, Dr. Basti Martinez, did you have further comments?
We mentioned the names of schools, but for board discussion, we need to put before them our recommendations and answer any questions so the board can make a decision regarding each of the individual schools.
The first school I'd like to report on is Charter College.
I'm sorry. I just want to make clear, because there was some confusion on this side. We are going to hear from the schools individually. So we will be hearing from the schools. You will have your say to come to the full board, and board members will have questions for you. So that's the confusion that we're hearing on this side. So we're going to hear your report and your recommendations, but the schools, yes, you will be heard from individually. That was always the intent, not to take away your right to address the full board. So that takes care of your concerns on this side?
I just had a question. So can we assume if the Education Committee has recommended something that it's also staff recommending it? I just want to make sure I understand.
Actually, I think, let me interject, I'm sorry. Well, I don't think we can assume anything at this point, so you'll see recommendations from staff information. It looks like for these first three schools, you'll see recommendations or information from the committee level, and you'll just be handling it the way that you ordinarily would. So I think at this point, you're inviting up each of the three schools respectively, and you'll address their provisional approval, and then you can take into consideration what the committee has provided you, but the NEC's recommendations are also there. Does that help?
Okay.
So at this time, we're going to call the schools in front of us, but I just want to ask, are there any board member questions for Mr. Vertito and Dr. Basti de Martinez on their report?
I guess this just goes back to my question. I don't want to repeat it. So basically, to summarize, we're talking about the Education Committee is going to pre-review for us all of the schools that are candidates to be put on provisional approval. Is that correct?
And what we're going to do is we took their report, we're going to hear from the schools. Then if you remember my opening comments, we're going to go back to the Education Division, and we're actually going to vote on their authority and what we're going to delegate.
Okay.
So that's going to be at a later time. Ms. Norton.
Kind of a follow-up to that. So,
yes.
Will the Education Committee only be meeting with schools that are being placed on provisional, and then the other schools that are already on provisional will continue to come before the full board?
Everyone's still going to come before the full board. That's what we're going to vote on after we hear from the schools. We're going to go back to the Education Committee and then delegate authority to them.
Okay. So then aren't we doing double work?
Yeah, and I totally hear what you're saying, and we're going to, I'm going to ask that we hold your question until we return after we hear the schools, because I think there will be a further broader discussion about that.
So then I just have one more question regarding the first page here, because there's a part here that says, specifically the committee is charged with gathering public input and gathering public input and making recommendations to the board for action relative to the education of safe and competent vocational nurses and psychiatric technicians. How are they gathering public input?
They're going to be at the meetings, at their education committee meetings.
It says that the committee is charged with gathering input.
Yeah. And Mr. Vertito and Dr. Basti Martinez will also explain that. What I'd like to do is hear from the schools right now, if you're acceptable to that. And then when we're going to come back and talk about their specific authority, and we'll iron out all those issues. I'm sure it'll be a very healthy discussion.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would like to call Charter College Canyon Country Vocational Nursing Program. And so how this will work is we will hear from the Education Committee on their recommendation. Then board members will ask questions of the committee. Also, you will be able to make a statement, okay? And we'll proceed in that fashion. And the NEC has also her report. Canyon Country. I will turn first to the Education Committee and then to the NEC.
Okay, the first school that we brought into consideration was Charter College Canyon Country VN program. Our report was presented to us by Donna Johnson, RN Nursing Education Consultant, on the current status of the school. Present at there were numerous representatives of the school present. I don't know if we need to list their names, but the director from Charter College.
May I interrupt? I apologize. Excuse me, real quick. I'd like to handle the agenda in the way that it's noticed. So if we could please call up Charter College Canyon Country Vocational Nursing Program for placement on provisional approval, and handle the report from the NEC as we ordinarily would. And then if there's additional input from the committee, then I think that would be the time to take it.
Okay, yes. So we will have a recommendation and a report from the NEC, and we will also have the recommendation from the Education Committee. What you're asking is that we proceed with NEC first?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we've been so legally advised. Wow. Let's backtrack a little bit. Start with Jessica first.
No.
Donna first.
So what agenda item are we on?
17.
So we're on agenda item 17. So, okay. Thank you.
Donna.
Madam President, there is an update, which I'm sure our representative from Charter will explain. There was another transition of program director, and as of, I think, Christina, it was Tuesday, there is a new program director and some new information from the school. I think that was provided as a last-minute addendum to the Education Committee.
We have reviewed the materials already. Mr. Vertito, I would, just as I asked the NEC, I would just like to ask you to specifically address your recommendation. We've read your report.
Just the recommendation? Okay, very good. To my colleagues, the recommendations that were unanimous in the committee recommendations include the following. Place the Charter College Canyon Country Vocational Nursing Program on provisional approval for a 2-year period from August 26, 2016 through August 25, 2018, and issue a notice to the program to identify specific areas of noncompliance and requirements for correction as referenced in Section 2526.1E of the California Code of Regulation. Recommendation 2, require the program to bring its average annual pass rate to no more than 10 percentage points below the state average annual pass rate. Recommendation 3, require the program to provide no less than 1 instructor for every 10 students in clinical experiences. Recommendation 4, require the program to obtain board approval prior to the admission of each additional class. Recommendation.
Could I interject again? I'm sorry. As the president mentioned, we've read the materials, and I wanted, especially in the interest of time, in terms of reading the entire report, I think actually we're at a stage of maybe asking for input from the college.
Right.
Thank you so much.
So normally we have the NEC report we read, and if they have any comment, they bring it up. So yes, Mr. Riccido, I wasn't actually asking you to read every recommendation. I'm sorry that I wasn't clear. Yes.
Then the committee recommendation is to endorse all
Thank you.
all 9 recommendations made by the NEC.
Thank you. Do board members have any questions regarding the report of the consultant?
Just one. Given the new information that was presented, would that in any material way impact the recommendations made by either the NEC or the committee?
There would be an impact. The program has submitted written notice of intent to close. So their approval status technically expired some months ago. They were in their review process. So they will need some sort of status, but you may want to think about the dates, and I think the closure date is for November of this year.
All right, thank you.
Do you, I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, do you have a revised recommendation that you wanted to give to us?
I would consider leaving the recommendation as it is, and once the program is closed, the board could simply acknowledge the closure.
Okay. Ms. Avella?
Well, so these represent your recommendations, correct?
I'm sorry?
These represent your recommendations, correct? It says the committee's recommendations.
So as an NEC, I wrote a report to the committee. The committee heard those recommendations and then recommended to accept the recommendations as written in the report.
Okay, because my only concern here is that, okay, I'm looking at agenda item 17.
After the purple is the NEC report.
Okay, I'm looking at agenda item 17, I see that. Agenda item 17 was written from Bernice and John, okay, and a page later it says committee recommendations.
After the
Okay, so I want to see in writing that the NEC also recommends this. Is that?
after the purple is what I was trying to say.
There's an A.
So there's a lot of purple pages, so
If you just go,
It's on the front page, on the last line.
After the purple page?
yeah, do you want me to?
It's on what front page?
So 5A behind.
On,
Okay.
Okay, I mean, I guess I'm making a point that I want to be able to find that if this is the format we're going to, I want to be able to see
Sure.
in writing that the NEC is recommending this.
I'll fix that.
And it's not just the committee.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I'll fix that.
Yes, so this is our standard format. We're not deviating. First, we ask questions of the NEC of the report, then we hear from the school. So there was some confusion about, weren't we hearing from the school yet?
Madam President?
Yes.
I have the same confusion because I don't find the NEC's report in here. And it honestly, it just seems
attachment?
like if there's an NEC report and then there's a committee report and they're exactly the same, then we're doing double work. Additionally, the information, we could have went through this whole thing without the information from Donna that says that the school actually intends on closing, which is vital information, so it just seems like this is a little clumsy.
Cheryl, I see you.
Just wanted to remind the board members that all the NEC reports that are referenced in this document are attached. So you do have a copy of the
Yes.
NEC reports.
They're attachments.
No, I see that, but it doesn't specify that this is, it's unusual that, we usually saw the NEC report, and it appears that the only difference now is that instead of being the NEC report, it's now labeled the committee report. So I think what Vivian and I are both concerned with is that we want it highlighted if there is a difference between what the NEC recommends and what the committee recommends, and it's difficult for us at this time to be able to ascertain that.
I see you. Yeah, this is the first time we have the packets arranged like this. So Dr. Brown did say there will be some reorganization of that. Yes, Dr. Bastien Martinez.
And if I'm hearing the comment correctly, and I'm going to try to paraphrase, you're not seeing a difference in this particular item or this particular recommendation, that anything that is different from the consultant's recommendation. And that could happen after committee members review the information, hear presentations from the representatives. We might very well concur, and that would be the recommendation. It just happens in this first instance, that's what happened.
Thank you.
It also happens, there was new news,
That came out.
and there can be new news even after a committee meets. And so that's unfortunate, but it does change how we look at things.
So the committee's going to meet, if I understood correctly, the committee's going to meet monthly. The board is only going to continue to meet quarterly, so.
Well, we haven't decided for sure yet what exactly they're going to be doing, because we haven't voted on it yet. So that's going to be when we come back to them after we hear the schools. So all this stuff we're talking about, what power the education committee has when they're going to meet, we actually haven't voted on that yet. So this is just proposed as of right now.
I think we should have gotten the particulars first and then the reports.
It was advised by legal that we separated out this way, so.
I'm just trying to keep up, that's all.
I just wanted to say, I mean, I did read this, but I was confused because it says 5A, and I didn't understand. And then I looked at the date, and it said June 29, 2016, so I didn't recognize this as, since we normally get them in August, and I guess I have a concern regarding Donna's, is that if we have a interim step where the committee has to review it, does the information get stale? So, I mean, I'm just questioning if we're creating some extra work, because I'd like the recommendation to be as fresh and current as possible, so.
Yes, and that, I hear your concern, that's a completely valid concern, and we'll be talking about the role of the education committee in that when we delegate the authority after we come back. Right now, we have a representative from Canyon Country here to address us. Would you like to address the board at this time?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, Education Committee, board members, and our NEC.
Yeah, just speak real close into the mic.
Thank you, Madam President, Education Committee, board members, and our NEC. Thank you. Is that better?
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Christina Baja. I am the campus president at Charter College, California campuses. Charter College agrees with the NEC and Education Committee proposal for provisional status. We do find that we've had limited clinical sites, and we have struggled with clinical sites for quite a while. Because of that, the college has decided to close the program.
Thank you.
Students were noticed yesterday, and I do have some updates on that. Term 4 students will be taught out. There are 2 students being taught out. They graduate in November. We do have a board-approved director of nursing, Nancy Lisa Walla, who has been with the college for quite a while. Ms. Awala will be with us through the program closure, which is, we're asking for the board approval for program closure November 30th. The graduation date for these 2 Term 4 students is November 6th. That would give the college plenty of time to be able to get grades in, clinical hours, lecture hours, have the registrar process, and make sure that the director of nursing has the opportunity to get the application into the board so they can be approved for NCLEX to take their test. Given that additional 3 weeks after their graduation date ensures that we have an opportunity to work to get those students through and not have any delays in getting their applications into the board. We had 9 Term 2 students. I personally met with those students yesterday along with our director of nursing. They have been withdrawn for the program. And I met with multiple schools in our area to determine if their Term 1 credits could be transferred. I was able to work with campus managers and directors of nursing to ensure that our Term 1 could transfer into these other schools. Out of the 9 students, 7 have already found another school, have applied, and are looking to start Term 2 on Monday. The remaining 2 students have expressed interest in other 2 schools that we have gotten positive affirmation that their Term 1 credits would transfer.
Thank you, ma'am.
One more. All Term 2 tuition and Title IV funding is being reimbursed. And in order to, in the best interest of the students, recompense them, we have decided that any remaining Term 1 balance with the college is being zeroed out. So they don't have any financial obligation to the college once we have separated.
Thank you. And at this time, I'll call for board member questions for either the representative or the NEC. I do have a question. I think, if I heard you correctly, what you're asking, the recommendation currently is to extend the provisional. You're just asking for it to be extended to November 6th, and then you want to close.
I request for the board to consider provisional status through November 30th, and we would close the program on November 30th.
Board member questions for the representative or the NEC?
I have one question. I know you asked for November 30th. It's midweek. Does December 2nd, that Friday, the last day of the week, just cause more confusion, or does that couple extra days, in the week, is that helpful at all to you?
Having the last 2 days of the week certainly is helpful. We just went for month end.
Okay.
Is that a motion you would like to make?
So it sounds like any motion on the part of the board at this point would still be in line with the agenda, that the idea of placing the program on provisional approval. The secondary matter of their voluntary closure, that can be handled by staff, where then the school would be removed from the list of approved schools for a year. So again, just what's in front of you at the moment is the provisional itself.
Yes.
Okay. I'll move that the board accept the recommendations as presented in the NEC report.
Is
I'll
there any
second.
I'm sorry.
With the same dates, is what you're saying?
So the date he was discussing was their closure date, right?
But the dates that in the report says 2018.
Does it change?
So that's actually, you would modify that recommendation.
You mean the extension of the length of time they're on provisional approval? That's not going to matter.
Yeah. It doesn't.
I believe at this point, you're just placing them on provisional approval.
Right.
The length of time won't matter, especially if they're voluntarily closing in November.
So
Fair enough, right?
Okay, so I'm going to
But
clarify.
you mentioned the report, so that places them on provisional approval.
Right.
Perfect.
So,
And then
Mr.
what they choose to
DeBrownstein,
do after that is.
Exactly.
your motion includes number one, which placed Charter College Canyon Country on provisional approval for 2 years from August 26, 2016 through August 25, 2018. Yes.
Yes.
That's fine. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
I had already seconded, and I understood it to be that we're accepting the report as written.
Thank you.
Well,
So, Mr. Durkin.
just a point of clarification. The NEC's recommendations were then adopted in substance by the Education Committee.
No.
No?
Right, continue with your thought, because I think, yeah, please continue.
So we would be accepting the recommendations of the Education Committee and not, but through the the NEC through the Education Committee.
At this point, it's fair to adopt the original NEC report
Okay.
and leave it at that.
We could only find it.
Okay. There is a motion on the floor. Any public comment on the motion at this time? Nope, I don't see any. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. I'd like to take a roll call vote at this time, starting on my far left. Ms. Norton?
Yes.
Mr. Vertito?
Yes.
Ms. Baste Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Endozo?
Yes.
Vice President Moreno?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. DeBrownstein?
Yes.
Ms. Avella?
Yes.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Okay, it has been moved and has passed. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, that moves us to
17B.
17B. And
Which is also 5B.
I just want to make sure I have your school name correct. Next, we have Santa Barbara Business College, Rancho Mirage. And I believe that's with Jessica, yes?
Yes.
We have received your report, read it. We've also received the report from the Education Committee and read it. Do board members have any questions for the NEC at this time? I don't see any. I believe we have a representative here.
Hi, my name is Peggy Rivetto, and I'm with Santa Barbara Business College, Rancho Mirage.
Did you have comments for the board?
No, I just want to accept the board's recommendation and just say that I'm new to the directorship as of 6 months ago, and I was teaching at the college for the previous year as well, and I've made a lot of improvements in the program. I've reviewed a lot of different areas and made some changes, and I just want it to be noted that our last passing rates were 90 and 100%.
Thank you.
And I look forward to any welcome suggestions from the board.
Yes. So at this time, I'll take board member questions for either the representative or NEC. Do I have any board member questions or comments? Mr. DeBronstein?
I would just, hearing that the school is in line with the recommendations as presented by the NEC, I would move that the board accept the recommendations and act upon them accordingly.
I'll second.
So there's been a motion and a second on the floor. At this time, is there any further public comment on the motion? I see someone approaching.
I would just like to say my name is Carolyn Santiago, and I'm with the Bakersfield campus, and myself as well as Don Lopez at our Santa Maria campus will be supporting Peggy 100%. Bakersfield has been in the same shoes, and we have, we're off of probation, so definitely behind Peggy, and we will be working with Peggy.
Thank you.
She has done a phenomenal job.
Thank you. So we received public comment on the agenda item. There's been a motion and a second. At this time, I'll take a roll call vote on the current. Yes.
There's a difference between the recommendation from the Education Committee and the NEC's report.
She's calling for board, call for board comment, and everyone can comment on it.
Okay, so we'll have we'll have board discussion on this. Further board discussion, Ms. Mendoza.
So there's a difference between the NEC's recommendation and the Education Committee's recommendation on number 3.
Okay, would Dr. Bastien Martinez or Mr. Rotito like to address that?
Part of what occurred in our discussions led to the recommendation of item 3 be denied as opposed to what was presented as in the consultant's report. And it was a result of the discussions that we had in terms of the questioning and the information presented. And we just heard a number of changes have been made, and we did discuss during that time the potential of what changes might occur.
When you said that you agree with the recommendations, were you speaking of the recommendations as written by the Education Committee?
Yes.
Okay. So the school has indicated that they agree with the recommendations as modified by the Education Committee. Mr. DeBronstein, your motion was actually to accept the NEC recommendations. Is that still your motion?
That's what I understood it to be.
Yeah, and can we clarify what the modification was?
Yeah,
Or what
can
the
I
difference is?
clarify
Bernice
that they
just-
understand that there's,
I know she did, I'm sorry.
does the school understand that there's a difference? The Education Committee's report is to deny you new students. The NEC's report was to approve you new students.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The Education Committee's recommendation is to deny you new students.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't think you were aware of that.
Okay. So that's where this is.
So you are in agreement with the NEC report
Yes.
to place you on provisional approval and admit new students. The motion on the floor was to do the same?
Yes.
That's been seconded. Is there any?
Okay, so we're just to clarify, the motion is to accept the NEC's recommendation.
The current motion. Now, and I see your face now looking a little confused. The only modification, as Dr. Bastien Martinez indicated, was to number 3, correct?
Correct.
and that's actually to deny the admission of 20 students. So the NEC's recommendation is to approve the 20 students. As Dr. Bastien Martinez indicated, the modification of their report was to deny. The current motion on the floor that we're dealing with right now is with the approval. Number 3 is being approved.
Okay.
Okay?
And if it's not approved, we would no longer have any students because we have a class graduating the Thursday before. So obviously, no improvement can be made if we do not have a class.
I understand.
And I think I've demonstrated that we are on the right track with the last 2 quarters passing on 90% and 100% pass rate. So I would like the opportunity to continue our progress forward.
Are board members clear?
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Then I'm going to second.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the motion has been moved forward to approve the NEC recommendation by Mr. DeBrownstein and seconded by Ms. Avella.
Board discussion?
Yeah, any further board discussion?
Is there anything further, Madam President? May I ask if there's anything further from the Education Committee on this point?
Sure.
Specifically, number 3? Go on.
Yeah, we're going to take Ms. Norton's question first, and then we will ask yours.
That was going to be my question, is why the Education Committee made the decision to, and were you aware that by denying them new students, that they would not then have any students?
Well, we were aware of it, but the problem was no program representative from the school attended to give input. They were invited, nobody attended, so we had only the information that was given to us by the NEC, which was as complete as she could make it, but with no additional information or input from the school. Decision was made based on the available information.
I would like to address that. We did not, there was some miscommunication, and I did not receive the notification of the meeting. And when I was speaking with the NEC afterwards, I realized that there was a meeting. I went with my IT person, and he said it went into some other file that had never made it to our server, so I was not aware of the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Avella?
Well, I just want to say, in terms of the NEC's recommendation, the reason why I support it is, so this is the first time this school is even being put on provisional approval. Before this time, they were able to admit as many classes as they wanted without even going to the board, correct? And so now we're talking about putting them on provisional approval. They obviously have to ask for each class to be approved. We're going to deny them an initial class, which is essentially going to put them out of business. So, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we can do whatever we choose to under regulations, but the board has had a precedent for a few years now of allowing a school, as it's put on provisional approval, to have the opportunity to have a class to show the effect of its improvements. And I would really caution the board to deny the opportunity to do that and to go from being, simply on a watch list to essentially making a decision that puts them out of business. I don't know if the NEC, if you have any further justification as to, your recommendation and how you feel about a class being approved.
It was her recommendation to approve it.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I just wanted to see,
Yeah.
I think this was a little confusing. If you don't have any comment, that's fine.
Donna, do you have anything? Jessica, do you have anything you would like to respond?
I know.
I'm sorry, whoever, I'm sorry.
The one thing that I would like to say is that we did have a telephone conversation a couple of days before the meeting. And at that time, she asked me if she needed to be at the meeting, at the Education Committee meeting. And I told her that I could not tell her she had to be there, but it was highly recommended. And and that's exactly what the letters say when we're inviting them to come to the meetings, is that they're highly recommended to come to the meetings. And so even though she did not receive the email, there was a telephone conversation that we were discussing, and I did tell her the date at that time.
Can I just clarify, it's highly recommended to come to these meetings. Is this not the first Education Committee meeting?
We give the same information for the board meetings as we did for this Education Committee.
I understand you gave them the same information, but isn't this the first? Isn't this a little out of the ordinary
is.
as a meeting? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But I still did not feel I could tell her that she had to be there, that it was highly recommended.
And I will respond to that as well. This was all very new to me as a new director, and I assumed we were talking about the board meeting because I didn't know there was an educational committee, and maybe she said that, but at the time, I didn't make the connection. They were two separate entities.
Thank you. And yes, this is a new thing, so there might have been some misunderstanding. That's acceptable. Any other further board discussion at this time? Ms. Mendoza.
So, Jessica, I'm trying. For the pass rates, it only goes up to March. We don't have any results for the April through June.
This report was written before we got the April-June results.
Wow. Okay, do we have them now?
The committee.
I
meeting-
understand.
yeah.
I understand that's an issue.
I did not bring a list of the reports of the pass rates.
So Jessica, you wrote the report with the information you had on hand?
I wrote the report with the information that was available to me at the time.
And it's looking like, from your body language, that you do not have the updated information
I
today.
do not have the updated information with me now.
Thank you.
So, and we're saying that the updated information speaks positively to the school's performance.
To my knowledge, there is no further testers. The last class that I graduated was last July, and 10 out of the 11 passed.
I'm sorry?
And 10 out of the 11 passed, so that was a 90% pass rate. So to my knowledge, I don't think anybody else has tested past this quarter that's documented, unless it was somebody from several years ago.
That's correct, and I want us to be very careful in terms of the NECs are for consultation. I don't want us to have it be a case of that the NECs are defending the report. While I appreciate you guys want to make sure that you get the most accurate, a couple of things that went into what the Education Committee considered. Remember, we're not just looking at just the actual pass rate, we're also considering faculty retention, and there were 3 new faculty because they had a turnover rate with faculty, and so that was partially what went into why the Education Committee differed from the NEC's report. And so that last quarter of results that we got back did not change because there were no testers. So I just want to be very mindful of when we then push back on the NEC to justify themselves. We shouldn't have the staff to actually be in a defensive posture. And so I'm just a little concerned of how we're asking for something from them. But the Education Committee, the reason for their response was due to not just pass rates, but faculty turnover. And as she mentioned, she's been on staff for 6 months. So just that was part of the reason for the differing results.
Yes, as I clarified with Jessica, you wrote the report with the information you had at the time,
Yes,
is
I
what
did.
we can expect of you. And I don't want you guys to feel like you're in a defensive position. At the same time, board members are allowed to ask the questions they deem necessary, and quite used to it already.
I just
So
want to say,
wanna-
I don't think what I said put them on the defensive. I think to the contrary, I want to make sure the NECs have all the information and the most up-to-date information to give us the recommendation we need. And my concern clearly is that if they have to prepare that information in advance to give it to a committee, I think that impedes the integrity of the information potentially.
I hear your concern, definitely. Ms. Norton?
I just want to go back to, so I thought that what Rebecca had told us was that we were voting on the NEC's recommendations now and not on the education committees. So this is clearly going to be difficult, especially when they differ.
Yes, this is a...
So we're
This is
not
something we're learning.
We are not currently considering the education committee's report at all. So the motion is to accept the
Yes.
NEC's report.
You're correct.
Will we
Now-
then have to go back and re-vote because they differ?
No. No. The motion currently is to accept the NEC's recommendation.
No, I understand that. But the Education Committee's recommendation differs from the NEC's. So will we then will we ignore the Education Committee's report, or will we go back and have an opportunity to then vote whether we want to accept that report?
It's
I'm
information.
confused.
It's information that you have, their recommendations, it's information you have. But right now, as legal indicated, we are voting on, have the authority to vote on the NEC recommendation.
So then if we want to accept the Education Committee's report, then we need to vote no on the NEC's report? Is that the process here?
Then you would modify the NEC.
We could modify, this is a lot of work.
Yep.
Just one follow-up question? I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Durkin?
I would just ask the NEC if there have been any material changes in her opinion since the June 16th report.
Absolutely.
That would impact the outcome of her report.
Yes, that's an excellent suggestion, thank you. Mr. DeBrownstein?
I would just say that the maker of the motion,
He was asking her a question.
Oh, were you saying in the future, or are you saying right now?
No, I'm saying right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you were meaning for the next.
Well, that would be helpful also.
We'll do that as well. Jessica, Mr. Durkin had a question for you. Did you want to restate it?
Yeah, certainly. Since you drafted the June 16th report, are you comfortable with your conclusions and recommendations based on that report as they apply today? Or would you change anything?
I would go along with the Education Committee.
So you're saying you change your recommendation?
Yes, I would, specifically after the discussions with the Education Committee, the reports that we had requested from the school had given no timelines or information on how they would make the changes, and giving the school the opportunity to really look at the program and to give us a report with timelines and detailed information would really make it so that we understood that these changes would be implemented prior to a new class starting.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, understand you correctly, with the information, since the day you wrote your initial report, with the information you have now, you would actually modify your recommendation number 3 to deny?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the motion we have on the floor now is to accept the initial report recommendations. Ms. Avella, did you have another question? Okay, so there's a motion on the floor and a second to accept the initial recommendations of Jessica Gomez. Mr. Durkin, I'll take a roll call vote, starting with you.
No.
Ms. Avella?
Yes.
Mr. DeBrownstein?
yes.
I'm a yes. Vice President Moreno?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza?
No.
Dr. Basti Martinez?
No.
Mr. Vertito?
No.
Ms. Norton?
Yes.
What does that put us at?
5 to 4.
5 positive.
Okay, so 5 yes and 4 no's means the motion passes.
So we're clarifying, a class was approved for September?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
The initial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next school that we will be hearing from is Trinity School of Health and Allied Sciences. And this is Jessica or Donna? Yes. Jessica? We have your report and we've read it. A question to you, as suggested by Mr. Durkin, is your initial report recommendations, do they remain the same?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then just one question is, do they differ in any way from the Education Committee recommendations?
No, they do not.
Okay, so we have the same. Is there a representative from Trinity School of Health and Allied Sciences here? Nope, okay. Let me see. Any board member questions for the NEC? I don't see any.
I would make a motion to approve the recommendations by the NEC.
Thank you.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded Is there any public comment on the motion on the floor, which is to accept the NEC's recommendations? Any further board discussion on the NEC's recommendations? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's take a roll call vote, starting on my far left with Ms. Norton.
Yes?
Mr. Vertito.
Yes.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Yes.
Ms. Endozo.
Yes.
Vice President Moreno.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. DeBronstein is absent. Ms. Avella.
Yes.
Mr. Deerkin.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. That moves us on to agenda item number 18. Sorry, let me just scroll down right here. That moves us to number 18, Education Division reports regarding VN and PT programs. Item number 18 includes reports regarding vocational nursing and psychiatric technician programs. There are 3 programs under 18A on the agenda for consideration of requests to admit students by programs on provisional approval. The first school is American College of Nursing Vocational Nursing Program. Consideration of request to admit students, Jessica Gomez, Nursing Education Consultant. Ms. Gomez, we have received your report and we have reviewed it. Do board members have any questions for Ms. Gomez regarding her report? I don't see any. Is there a representative from American College of Nursing Vocational Nursing Program here? Welcome. If you would like to come to the podium. If you would like to introduce yourself, for the record, that's helpful. It's also helpful to let us know whether you agree with Ms. Gomez's recommendations or you do not.
Good morning. My name is Faye Silva, Dean of Nursing, American College of Nursing.
Good morning. My name is Liza J. Legado, American College of Nursing
Thank you.
instructor.
Did you have any comments for the board?
I'd like to say that we agree with our NEC's recommendation, and we wish to thank our sincerest gratitude and expression of appreciation for all the guidance and support that she has extended to our school as we try to improve our systems.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members for either the representative or the NEC? I don't see any hands coming up.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendations by the NEC.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment on the motion on the floor at this time? Okay. Any further discussion by the board? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Deerking.
Yes.
Ms. Avella.
Yes.
Mr. DeBronstein's absent. I'm a yes. Vice President Moreno.
Yes.
Ms. Endozo.
Yes.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. Vertito.
He's not here.
Oh, Mr. Vertito's absent, I'm sorry. Ms. Norton?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That moves us to 18A2, High Desert Medical College Vocational Nursing Program. Consideration of request to admit students, Jessica Gomez, Nursing Education Consultant. Ms. Gomez, we have all received your report and we have reviewed it. Do board members have any questions regarding the report for Ms. Gomez? I don't see anyone having a question. Is there a representative from High Desert Medical College VN program here? Welcome. If you'd like to come to the podium, it's helpful if you would like to give us your name and also let us know if you are in agreement with Ms. Gomez's recommendations or you are not.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Dr. Michelle Welch, Director of Nursing with High Desert. Good morning. Dr. Michelle Welch, Director of Nursing at High Desert Medical College. And I do want to agree with the consultant's recommendations.
Great. Do board members have any questions for the representative or for our NEC? I don't see any. Anyone like to make a motion? Dr. Baste Martinez.
I move to accept the report as presented.
I'll second it.
So we are voting to accept, I believe, the recommendations from the NEC, yes?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any public comment on this agenda item? On the motion on the floor, I'm sorry. Any public comment on the motion? Any further board discussion? Okay, let's take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Norton.
Yes?
Dr. Baste Martinez?
Yes.
Ms. Endozo?
Yes.
Vice President Moreno?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Ms. Avella?
Yes.
Mr. Deerking?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, let me flip my page here to 18A3. Homestead Schools Vocational Nursing Program. Consideration of request to admit students, and this report comes to us from Ms. Lydia Ziegler, a nursing education consultant. Ms. Ziegler, we have received your report and we have read it. All board members have read it. Do board members have any questions for Ms. Ziegler on the report? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Is there a representative from Homestead Schools VN program? Good morning. If you would like to let us know your name, it's helpful for the record, and to let us know whether you agree with Ms. Ziegler's recommendations or not.
Good morning, Adele Blanco, Vocational Nursing Director.
We lost him. Where'd he go?
My name is George Dairit. I'm the Admissions Director.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Board. Thank you, Ms. President and Executive Director. Thank you. Homestead Schools Incorporated agree with the recommendation, but we would like to request a switch for this full-time day class of 24 to a part-time class of 24 students beginning September 10, 2016, graduating July 20, 2018, for the following reasons. Number one, we have been asking for a part-time class for more than 1 year now, and we have many prospective students who are wanting to join. Number two, we have secured certain faculty and facilities with a part-time class in mind. Approval of a part-time program will allow us to make the efficient use of these resources.
Thank you. I just want to clarify your request. If we're looking at the page of recommendations, number one is to approve Homestead Schools' request to admit full-time class of 24 beginning September 19th. Is that, you still want to accept that one, or that's the one you want to modify?
We want to switch that to a part-time. Instead of full-time approval, we would like the board to approve us for part-time.
Because then recommendation number two, Ms. Ziegler, I believe, is deny the program's request to admit one part-time class of 24. So what Ms. Ziegler was actually recommending to give you is a full-time class, but you're recommending now the part-time class instead of the full-time class.
Yes, to switch.
Okay. Ms. Ziegler, did you have any opinion on that on that request?
I think that that would be acceptable.
Do board members have questions for either the representative or Ms. Ziegler? Ms. Avella?
I do.
Is the date the same? Would the part-time class that she's proposing, will that start on the 19th or start on the 10th, which is
On
what
the
you?
10th.
The 10th?
I can ask that.
Yes, Ms. Avella.
So how would that affect the graduation dates? So the full-time class would have been scheduled to graduate when, and then in place of that, this part-time class would graduate when? Is it possible to clarify that?
Yeah, in the recommendation, that's exactly the same dates.
To graduate, to graduate.
So the graduation date for our request would be July 20th, 2018.
So, I'm sorry, I think I might have misled. Are you looking at the recommendations right now? Do you have them in front of you?
Yes, I have it.
Okay. So I believe actually what you're saying is you want to withdraw number one, your request to admit the full-time.
And to switch it.
Right. But number two was to deny the full-time starting on September 10th, graduating on July 2018. You actually want that to be reconsidered?
Yes.
Okay. So number one is off, you are not requesting number one, we're asking to reconsider number two. Yes?
Okay, so we're saying that, okay. If we approved a full-time class, it would be 2017 they would graduate.
Yes.
Okay. I guess my only concern is that, again, this is a school that has just been placed on provisional approval recently, correct? So I agree and support the NEC's recommendation to approve an opportunity to show the changes. It's just with a part-time class, this has a very long tail. So it's going to be a long time before we can see how you're doing. So I guess if the NEC is okay with changing the date and the part-time class, I guess I'd be hard-pressed to have grounds to deny it, but it's, you know, it really gives a very long opportunity, and we obviously have to reserve the right to take other action if we see, you know, things going south. So that would be my hesitation.
I will work very closely with Ms. Ziegler and, of course, Ms. Anderson to make sure that it will be looked at. The program will be followed up very closely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Basti Martinez.
When you are asking to switch from full-time to part-time, can you give us some rationale for that request?
Rationale number one, we have been asking for a part-time class for more than a year now, and we're denied. And we have many prospective students who are waiting, who are wanting to join for that part-time class. We've also secured certain faculty and facilities with part-time class in mind, which will allow us to make efficient use of these resources.
So I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Then going part-time, that also affects how you will offer curriculum. Also, as my colleague has pointed out, delay some information back to this board. How will that affect agreements for clinicals and other sites, which was part of the denial for a part-time in the original report?
All the request was given to Ms. Ziegler, and she has seen the assignments of faculty to student ratio. And as she said in her report, that we have enough resources and facilities and faculty to follow up on that. And she just recommended the full-time program instead of part-time.
However, if I'm understanding correctly, a part-time program goes on beyond the time that a full-time would. And so what I'm really asking, not only would you have the staff, but the necessary clinical agreements at the level that the board expects so that students get the kind of experience that they would need as part-time versus full-time. Sometimes agreements, for example, if it's full-time, only goes to that date. Or you know you can count on certain sites or certain faculty through a certain date.
Our facility has been approved for that certain time that you're talking about. So facilities that we have an agreement with also have an agreement to accommodate the number of students in the number of weeks that the students are in our part-time program. The instructional plan also is set up in such a way that it provides all the subjectives that is to that certain number of weeks that the part-time class is being placed in the facility.
And just one follow-up. You mentioned your colleague is the head of admissions?
Yes.
Was there potentially you wanted to talk with us about the admissions of the part-time?
Well, in particular,
Be happy to hear that.
well, in particular, we have a lot of full-time working students, and they just want to advance their careers, and they can't do that by going full-time. We want to give them the opportunity to be able to do that.
So if I'm reading between the lines, there are more students willing to sign up for a part-time class available at this time.
More interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the representative from the school?
No, I just want to be clear on what the school is requesting.
Yes, please.
They want us to, we have recommendation 1 here, which is a request to admit the full-time class. They no longer wish that to be one of the recommendations?
Correct, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And number 2 has been modified, from what I understand. It's currently denied, and they're requesting us to reconsider to approve number 2.
With the same dates and everything.
With same dates and everything.
And I would ask the NEC if there would be any programmatic challenges to that being accepted as a recommendation, which was different from the original recommendation.
Ms. Ziegler, how do you feel about the recommendation as requested by or the request from the school?
What is the
Can't hear you.
question again, sir?
Okay, the question was, the second recommendation was to deny the program's request to admit 1 part-time class. And the school is saying that they want the part-time class without the provision of the full-time class approved. So would that change any programmatic elements or requirements that this board would be interested in?
No, it would not change any requirements.
So you're okay with the part-time class then?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you.
Any further board member questions of the representative or our NEC? Does anyone feel comfortable making a motion on this agenda item?
I'll make that motion.
Sure.
So we are, whatever we have to do. So we are going to we are going to remove number 1.
Correct.
And then we're going to approve the program's request to admit a part-time class.
And
the
accept
rest remains.
Accept the rest of the
Accept the
recommendations?
rest.
I would second that. There is a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any public comment on the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is to remove recommendation, or the motion is to remove recommendation number 1, change number 2 to approve and accept the entirety of the rest of the recommendations. It's been moved and seconded. Let me start with a roll call vote. We'll start with Ms. Norton on my left.
Yes.
Mr. Vertito.
Yes.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Yes?
Vice President Moreno.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. De Brownstein.
I'll abstain.
Ms. Avella.
Yes.
Mr. Deerking.
Yes.
Okay, we have a majority. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time is 11:54. We have some board members who do need to check out of the hotel, and that 12 o'clock is the lunch hour. This time I'm going to break for lunch and ask everyone to return at 12:45. Thank you. We're going to move ahead with the agenda, so I'd like to ask you to take your seats. We're now at agenda item 18B1, Casa Loma College Van Nuys Vocational Nursing Program, reconsideration of provisional approval. Lydia Ziegler, Nursing Education Consultant. Ms. Ziegler, we have your report and have reviewed it. I'm going to ask board members if they have questions of Ms. Ziegler. I do have one question, and it's just on number 4. It says the line says the placement plans were due no later than June 15, 2016. So we're talking about something historical they were supposed to send to you.
Yes, yes, that is correct. But since that time, we have received the current placements.
So you have received
Yes.
what was requested?
Yes, we have.
Are your recommendations remaining the same?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. Other board members have any questions of Ms. Ziegler? I don't see any hands going up. Is there a representative from Casa Loma College Van Nuys VN program? Good morning, or good afternoon. If you'd like to announce yourself, introduce yourself, you may, and it's helpful to let us know whether you agree or disagree with the recommendation.
Yes, my name is Stephanie Ayo Akinyemi. I'm the program director. My name is Stephanie Ayo Akinyemi. I'm the program director, and I do agree with the NEC recommendations.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from board members for either the school representative or our NEC? I don't see any hands going up. Are board members still reviewing the information, or does someone feel comfortable with the motion?
I'll move to accept the NEC's recommendations as presented.
I'll second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Any further comment on the motion that has been presented?
I just want to thank Dr. Brown for taking the time to meet with me and the NEC. I am working very diligently to correct all the violations and hope to return in November with the positive answers.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now that we've had a motion that's been seconded, I'd like to take a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Norton.
Yes.
Mr. Verchito.
Yes.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Yes.
Ms. Endozo.
Yes.
Vice President Moreno.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Mr. de Bronstein.
Yes.
Ms. Avella.
Yes.
Mr. Deerking.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to 18B2, CNI College Vocational Nursing Program, reconsideration of provisional approval, and that's brought to us by Donna Johnson, Nursing Education Consultant. Ms. Johnson, we've read your report. We received and read your report. Do board members have any questions for Ms. Johnson on her report? Okay, I don't see any. Is there a representative from CNI College VN program here? CNI College Vocational Nursing Program? Okay, I'll call one more time and then we'll move on to the next, we'll move on. Is there a representative here from CNI College Vocational Nursing Program? Okay. I don't see any.
Samantha?
Yes.
Can I have one question?
Yes.
I just had a question, given the nature of some of the comments in here and the correspondence that we received about the concerns. I don't know. When is the last time we did a site visit, or do we have, my point is I hope that we're in close contact and investigating the complaints. I don't know if there's a specific process or if you have to tailor it uniquely to schools, but I, as a board member, would obviously want to know that we're keeping in very close contact, investigating, doing interventions if possible.
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Okay, great.
Okay. Since we do not have a representative here, do board members have any further questions of Ms. Johnson? Ms. Norton?
Specifically regarding the letter that was sent, I mean, I hadn't seen this letter before it came in the packet, so are all of the issues that are addressed in this letter being looked into, or have they been looked into?
We are very closely monitoring the program and will continue to do so.
Great. Mr. Bertito?
Motion to accept the NEC recommendation.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion, it's been seconded. Is there any public comment on the motion currently on the floor, or any further board discussion? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Dierking.
Yes.
Ms. Avella?
Yes.
Mr. DeBronstein?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Vice President Moreno?
Yes.
Ms. Mendoza? Yes. Dr. Baste Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Vertito?
Yes.
Ms. Norton?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us to 18B3, Infotech Career College VN program, reconsideration of provisional approval and consideration of request to admit students. Jessica Gomez, nursing education consultant. Ms. Gomez, the board has received and reviewed your report. Do board members have any questions of Ms. Gomez? Okay, I don't see any. Is there a representative from Infotech Career College Vocational Nursing Program here? Hi, welcome. If you'd like to come to the podium and introduce yourself if you like, and it's helpful if you let us know whether you are in agreement or disagreement with the recommendations.
Hi, my name is Asima Jabbar, Program Director for Infotech College, and I have Ms. Amita Garg also. She's our Campus Director.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Did you have some comments for us, or did
Yes.
you want? Yeah.
Yes. I want to thank all the board members here and Ms. Gomez and everyone there for being here today, and Ms. Gomez especially for guiding us what to do and in making us motivated and going. And today I just want to request, I know we requested earlier for 20 students. We want to request for 15 students if we can, and we have followed Ms. Gomez's instructions, and we got plenty of clinical sites now, including OB, PEDS, subacutes, almost 13 sites, and we have qualified, motivated instructors who already been teaching in vocational programs before for many years. We have 9 RNs and 1 LVN. And that's all I have to say. I'm requesting for a class.
So you're requesting on number 3 for us to reconsider the denial of the 20 full-time students, same date, September 6, 2016 through February 15, 2018?
Yes, ma'am.
But you're requesting it changed to 15?
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that you got some extra clinical sites.
Thank you. It was hard, but we got it
It's
within
hard,
1
right?
month.
One extra step, though, is that we need to have that verified by your NEC. So I was going to ask Ms. Gomez, do we have confirmation of those extra clinical sites?
Yes, and if you'll look in your packet, there is an addendum that does state that they did obtain approval for 3 maternity, 2 peds, and 5 additional skilled nursing.
Yes.
And although it's the board's decision, Ms. Gomez, do you have an opinion on their new request of maybe admitting 15?
My recommendation is that we really look at the pass rates and the curriculum. I feel like there is some reason that where they were going up on their pass rates, now they're going down, and I'm really concerned about the number of their current pass rate.
So I believe what you're saying is that your recommendations will remain the same?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And I have a question. If you're denied these students, how many students will you have? Will you have any students?
I'm sorry?
If you're denied this class, how many students will you have?
Right now, we have 10 plus 12, right?
Okay. And when are they scheduled to graduate?
January January 2016, 17.
Okay. Do board members have any questions of the representative or the NEC? Ms. Norton?
Can you speak about the curriculum? Because as I was reading through this report, I did notice that the curriculum appears to be outdated. And so can you speak about that?
Yes, I will, definitely. The curriculum, Ms. Gomez sent me an email that 2014 NCLEX test plan, have you compared with it, and, have you checked your curriculum? She was thinking why students' rates passing is going down. So, yeah, we did check, and we had, not only in 2014, actually we do every month. We call a stand-up meeting for 15 minutes, and we do with the instructors. So we haven't found any problem with the curriculum, but I put in the report 2014 because I thought Ms. Gomez wanted me to just write about the checking the test plan of 2014. That's why I wrote 14. It doesn't mean that we haven't evaluated, because we evaluate curriculum by the student, by the instructor, by me every 3 months, plus we do monthly evaluations. So if you look at our pass rates from before the years, we are using same curriculum with, and we have great, okay passing rate. I wouldn't say great, but it was okay. And then suddenly it dropped. 4 students took last quarter and 3 failed. And I talked to them because I was in shock too. So one of them was from 2013. We tried to contact her. She didn't reply back to us. She took the test. She failed. Now she called us for help. The second one was also a graduate who took the test, we told her that why she didn't take it. She said her husband is making good money. She wants to be a home mom. So there is like a gap between her graduation of 2015 and suddenly taking now. But she called us after she failed. We gave her a review program for 3 weeks. She took the test within a month and she passed. So, and the third one is actually a UCI baccalaureate graduate, and she was the topper in our school. I was concerned about her. Why did she fail the exam? These 3 really, worried me. And she told me that she got panic attacks. She was sweating. So she couldn't even complete the test. She had to leave.
I'm more concerned with the fact that within the report, it is mentioned that your program is using an outdated curriculum.
No,
do
we
you
are
disagree with that?
I do disagree with that. With other schools, such as, I'm sorry, I have to bring the other school's name here, Angelus College, I wrote the curriculum from scratch. And it was approved before by the board. And if I needed to do anything, any changes, I would have done it. What I feel our weakness was, I think, which we didn't notice until Ms. Gomez brought it up to us, more variety of clinical sites. And we worked on it day and night. Within 1 month, we got so many sites now. And I think it's going to make a big difference now.
So when did you write that curriculum?
I did. Which one?
I thought you said that you wrote the curriculum from scratch.
Not for this school. But if I needed to, I would have. But the curriculum we have here is okay. It's not. There's no problem.
So you haven't had any conversation with Ms. Gomez about the curriculum being outdated?
We had.
So you disagree with her?
Yeah. But what Ms. Gomez recommended us is to provide additional information from like 2014 to now, what we did. So I said, okay, I have it. Monday I'll email her.
Thank you.
And so yes, I have a question about the curriculum. Mr. Retito, we'll get to you in just 1 second, please. Ms. Gomez, I'm relying on your expertise here. Is the curriculum outdated? Can you explain to us what's going on with the curriculum?
I have no evidence that they have evaluated the curriculum since 2014, and the only evidence I have is in a report where they changed the date and said that they evaluated against the board, the test plan.
And is my understanding, ma'am, that the curriculum that you are using now at Infotech is a curriculum that you used previously at a different college?
No. And I'd just like to correct, this actually was something that all of the curriculum plans are reviewed, once they're reviewed by the NECs and separately by the supervising nurse exec, when then it comes to me. In regards to this one, and just a minor correction for what Jessica said, we did not find any substantive corrections between the 2012 curriculum plan and the 2014, with the exception of dates. And so I just want to call out that, Board Member Norton, that's literally all we found, was literally the changing of dates. And so that was part of the reason that when in preparing this recommendation that I agreed with Ms. Gomez that this should be this way, because we literally could not find any changes to the curriculum plan other than the change from 2012 date to 2014.
Were you aware that Ms. Gomez was requesting that you update your curriculum?
Like I explained before, there is some confusion between what Ms. Gomez asked us and what I submitted to her. Ms. Gomez said, since 2014 NCLEX test plan, have you evaluated? So I thought she wanted me to put 2014 there. So I put 2014, but we have been evaluating. I have everything saved on my desktop. I can send it Monday to her. Yeah.
And then I do have a question, but I'm going to take Mr. Vertito first.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, in our report, you only had 2 clinical sites, is that correct?
2 sites?
Previously, you only had 2, report as having only 2 clinical sites.
Those were long-term care, but we did have OB peds also. We had a lot more.
At the time this report was written, that we read, it says specifically there are only 2 approved clinical sites. The students were assigned to one site for a complete program. So at the time of the report, you only had 2 sites. Is that correct?
No.
That's not correct.
We had more.
Okay. This is as of February 26, 2016.
Yes.
Okay. So how many sites as of that time do you have, or did you have?
Did we add?
I'm sorry?
How many did we add it since 2016?
In February 2016, how many clinical sites did you have?
13.
13?
Were they verified by Ms. Gomez?
Yeah.
So there's a discrepancy in it.
You can give.
Misunderstanding.
Can we just give you the clinical sites copies are there too?
It says on June 10th, 2016, on page 7 of the report, 3rd paragraph. On June 10th, 2016, the program director responded and submitted a clinical calendar that only rotated students through 2 clinical sites throughout the program for fundamentals of nursing and medical surgical nursing. So how many?
For mod 1 and 2, that is true.
Okay.
But we fixed it now.
All right.
But we had more sites, sir.
Okay. It was previously noted that you did not have sufficient clinical facilities to afford the number and type and variety of patients that will provide clinical experience consistent with the competency-based objectives. So the question I'm asking, I wanted to get to, is how many and what type of clinical sites did you acquire since this report?
Okay, we have acquired 2 subacutes. So now we have three subacutes, and we have more pediatric. I don't have exact number. Let me see here.
You had 3 subacutes and what else?
I'm looking. There's 2 more peds and 1 OB. Three OB and 2 peds.
So these are the new sites that you just submitted on?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
These are the new sites you just submitted for approval?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to find out, is what types of sites did you just get?
Okay.
If you did get that many sites, good for you, because they're hard to come by.
Very hard, sir, believe me, and within a month.
Oh, I have no doubt, but that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Not only that, Ms. Gomez were not able to contact them, and I had to drive there almost for a week or 2 weeks and stand there so that they could talk to Ms. Gomez and request them. I had them talk to each other.
Right. Thank you for making that effort.
Yes.
Mr. Vertito, do you have further questions?
I yield to my colleague, Ms. Martinez. That's Martinez.
Let me take Mr. de Brownstein first, because he was raising his hand over here for a while, and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Baste Martinez. Is that okay? Mr. de Brownstein.
Yeah, I would, in the interest of helping us focus,
Yes.
I think if I make a motion to accept the NEC's recommendations as presented, and we take that as a discussion point, so we're focused on the points in the NEC recommendation, because I saw additional information come up. Happy to consider it, but I want to try and stay focused on the recommendations. So my motion would be to accept the NEC's recommendations as presented.
I'll second.
And it's seconded. We're not going to vote right now. We'll still have more discussion. Ms. Dr. Baste Martinez?
I now do not have a question with the motion on the floor.
Thank you. I do have a question, and Ms. Gomez, I'm sure you can help me understand this. I'm looking at this with just this information, and help me to understand this message that we're sending. So it appears that we're telling them, you have to find more clinical sites, you have to find more clinical sites. Now, they've gone out and they've presented evidence to us that they've found and come to agreement with these clinical sites, but then at the same time, we're telling them, but no students. So what's going to happen to these clinical, they've gone out and find these clinical sites like we've asked them to, but then now I'm not sure, but then we're not giving them the students to go to the clinical sites. Is that?
At the same time, I was asking about the curriculum. So it was not just one thing I was asking about two.
So there was a series of things you were asking?
And both of them were directed because of the pass rates.
Okay, I got you.
And then the final thing is that they do still have students that are there until July. So it does, I want to do a clarification. She mentioned January, but they're still there until July. And so then when they come back to us, we still do have a time to utilize those clinical sites.
Thank you. That was my question. Is there any more questions
I
from?
do now.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Given the frame of the information that we have on the consultant's report, that is basically all we have to work on. I've started to read what you've handed us. We just received it. And in order to analyze it and to give you benefit of the doubt, to make sure we understand, it's a bit challenging. Question to you, when exactly did the changes you're referring to in this document occur? When were they completed?
Now, which change you are referring to?
I'm sorry?
The clinical side?
You've given us an updated document here.
Right.
And it refers to some potential changes and corrections.
Right.
When exactly was this completed?
Sorry, our response here was based on the NEC's original recommendations. We didn't receive the addendum, it wasn't on the website, and we didn't get a copy of it. So we didn't realize that you already knew that we had obtained the clinical sites. So that's part of it. Part of this report also is to explain about our pass rates and explain why our students failed. So we just wanted to, that's not new information, it's just we wanted the board to understand that we're following up with the students and, they each had their own reasons, which we just described.
And we have a different report, and you got the updated report from Ms. Gomez, but we didn't get that. So that's why we brought this for explanation. It's not new, but it's probably in her report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Do other board members have questions for either the representative or the NEC?
I'm wondering, particularly because the motion is about adopting the report, and it appears, the report I have is dated 8/1/2016. Is that what everybody else, is that the extension of provisional approval and denial of programs requests?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what was sent.
So the August 1st report is what we're all dealing with. Okay.
Any further questions from board members for representative or for the NEC?
Excuse me, Madam President?
Yes.
I just need to clarify something. I thought I heard the director say that she didn't have the report that the board members had.
The addendum.
That can't be, because I sent the report to her, the same that I send to everyone else, and it's the very same report that you have.
Yes, we got the report. It's just the update about the clinical sites that I didn't see.
That occurred after that.
Yeah,
Oh.
that occurred after 8/1. So the 8/1 we all have. It's just we didn't realize that you were aware of our new clinical sites, that's all.
Which, yes, Ms. Gomez did verify today, verbally. So there is a motion on the floor. It has been seconded. And the motion is to accept the recommendations as initially stated. I do not see any further board member questions. Is there further public comment about the motion that's on the floor? No?
I mean, okay.
Well, we haven't voted yet, so. Okay, so I don't see any further public comment about this motion. I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Deerking.
Yes.
Ms. Avella?
Yes.
Mr. DeBronstein?
Yes?
I'm a no. Vice President Moreno?
Yes.
Ms. Endozo?
Yes.
Dr. Basti
Yes.
Martinez? Mr. Vertito?
Yes.
Ms. Nori?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President? I believe our next school is Intercoast College.
Correct.
I need to declare, if I may, that I was an employee of Intercoast College approximately 5 years ago, and I've had no contact with Intercoast and have no outstanding or any controversies or anything that can color my decision-making regarding this. So I just need to make sure I declare that publicly.
Thank you for revealing that.
Thank you.
I'll just double-check with legal.
Yes, we have discussed it.
Okay. Next one is 18B4, Intercoast College Vocational Nursing Program. Reconsideration of provisional approval, Donna Johnson, Nursing Education Consultant. Ms. Johnson, we have received your report and we have reviewed it. Do any board members have questions for Ms. Johnson? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Is there a representative from Intercoast College VN program present? Good afternoon. As you come up, it's helpful for the record if we know your name and also whether you agree or disagree with the recommendations of the NEC.
I'm Carla Carter. I'm the program director. First, I want to thank Donna Johnson because she always answers my phone calls. She's always available. Thank you for your support and guidance. She's brilliant. We love her. And I do agree with the recommendations. I just wanted you to note one thing that we made as a decision as an organization not to ask for enrollment, even though we will not have students after next week. But we do want the provisional to be extended. The reason we chose to do that as an organization is to, it actually goes back to the Southern California Director's request today. Our pass rates were really bad, and the reason was I was researching it because I know my students were passing, but we were having numbers of students that were testing that I had no idea who they were or where they came from. And some of them did contact me, and I find out that they graduated in 2014, 2 years ago. And, that, directly affected our pass rates terribly. So the reason we chose not to ask for more enrollment was so we can, the last 2 cohorts that we enrolled, that are now the last one will be graduating next week, we want to show you some data on them. We want to show you that the improvement plan worked. However, we still have a hard time evaluating that curriculum, and I have a passion for curriculum, so I really want to evaluate if our improvement worked, and it's really difficult with those testers that are coming out of the woodwork that I have no idea. First of all, they didn't get the benefits of the improvement plan either. So, it's just too many variables. So, I'm really happy that you are considering that they release the names and at least the grad dates. That would be so helpful.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
And you are in agreement with Ms. Gomez?
Absolutely.
Do board members have any questions for the representative or for our NEC? Mr. Vertito.
Thank you. Ma'am, it's been reported that you had some teaching assistants being used and scheduled as instructors. I don't know if this was on your watch or not, but it's clear in the Nurse Practice Act that teacher's aide are under the direct supervision of an instructor. And kind of like to know what happened.
That was my mistake. I accidentally or inadvertently, when I wrote the grid, I just put the teacher that was there and not the lead instructor on there. I did correct that. I did send the correction to Ms. Johnson, and I think I got that in time, right? I think it's in there that, yeah, that violation did not occur, because I'm well aware of that rule.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from other board members for the representative or for our NEC? No, not seeing any. Mr. Vertito.
Motion to accept the NEC recommendation as presented.
Second.
There's a motion. It has been seconded. Any more further public comment about the motion currently on the floor? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call for the roll call vote, starting with Ms. Norton.
Yes.
Mr. Vertito.
Yes.
Dr. Baste Martinez.
Yes.
Ms. Endozo.
Yes.
Vice President Moreno.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Mr. DeBronstein.
Yes.
Ms. Avella.
Yes.
Mr. Durkin.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
The next 2 programs under item 18C are on the board's agenda for consideration of request to reconsider the board's May 13, 2016 action to revoke approval. That is nursing education. For this is Donna Johnson. Ms. Johnson, we've received your report and we have reviewed it. Do board members have any questions for the NEC? Okay, I do not see any. Is there a representative from Bay Area College of Nursing, Daly City? Welcome. It's helpful if we have your name for the record, and if you want to state if you agree or disagree.
Danetta Garcia, thank you again, members, the board, and honorable president. I come on behalf of Bay Area College of Nursing, Daly City, as a representative, and state this information of which the director wanted to impart to the board. In May, after the decision was made to revoke and remove the program immediately sent forward an appeal for reconsideration of the revocation. During that period, from then until now, the program sent numerous emails regarding a change in venue as far as representative of the NEC staff to perhaps become a new NEC and retain a new NEC to represent them. The program consistently contacted the Board of Vocational Nursing and did not until June 7th receive a call, 4-minute call, that stated that the appeal for the revocation was sent to legal and that legal would determine if it would go to the EO, and that the EO would make a yes or no decision, and that the managing supervisor of the Education Division would then return a call to the director on the status. It wasn't until August to receive the report that it was to uphold the decision that any information came from the board. What is unfortunate is that during this period, there's a letter you should have received somewhere in and around July 26th that says that BACN Daly City has withdrawn its request for revocation because it felt it would not have been prudent and given enough time to present an argument in defense of its reinstatement. It is imperative to note that the board staff always submits to the programs a request that if you would like to be on the board agenda, please send information in by this time or that time. It is unfortunate that the board staff failed to respond back to the program, who had continuously sought support so that regardless of the indecision result, they would have had an opportunity. And so they withdrew, only to find out a few weeks or days prior to this board meeting that it was being reconsidered with upholding the same decision as of May 13th. The other unfortunate thing is that that program waited. It waited for the call. How many other programs are waiting for the call? The call that doesn't come to let them know you will have an opportunity, up or down. That is unconscionable, because all of these programs today, tomorrow, or the next day, or the next year, they may face the same thing. Yes, staff is busy, but you must ensure that everyone gets the attention they need. Not only that, they were told that they could not change NECs because there weren't enough of them. However, a prior school, weeks before, a month before, got to change its NEC. They felt they would not be successful with the NEC they had. Regardless of the professionalism of that NEC, they did not feel it was a good fit. Is that what we've come to? Deciding you may not work well with us, but that's a little bit too bad. Is that where it is? Yes, it is, because I sat in that office when other programs requested to retain a new NEC, and the conversation was thus: no. I'm a first-hand witness to that. It happened more than once. So we put the challenge, BACN Daly City, to the board. Consider revocations and reconsideration should be put into law, that there are at least 6 months from the moment they are revoked for them to prepare a defense. Even a murderer gets that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia.